this kind of works like pretty quickly, like pretty much as soon as like end broadcast or like the whole like live counter up on the top comes up, or like pretty much live. But just want to kind of double check anyway.
Because technical gremlins and such.
Because of that, yeah. So what's up, everybody? Cider and Port back for a different video. I'm still not used to saying that. I'm still used to saying my old intro, but however.
Doesn't have the ring, does it?
No. Anyway.
Not yet. Give it time.
Not yet. I'll kind of, I'll ease into it. So, as the title of the video suggests, we're going to be going over all of the presidential debates, and we're going to be talking about the election as a whole. As the banner on the bottom of the video will tell you that there is a link in the discussion, which there actually isn't, but I go and amend that fairly quickly. So if anybody would like to join in, we are going to prioritize right-leaning people just because we don't want it to be a circle jerk. So if there is anybody who is interested in coming in and talking about the debates and the election, just say so, and we'll go from there. So does anybody want to kind of kick it off just while I'm sorting out some background tech issues? Well, not issues, but
I'm just sharing this to Facebook and Twitter, trying to get some conservatives to come in. Because we're just a few libtards. What the hell do we know, right?
Nothing. Oh yeah, definitely. Absolutely nothing.
Just a collection of liberal, leftist, Democrats, socialist, Marxist, communists, all of them
society,
something different.
So okay, yeah. So I actually realized that I didn't need to open. Okay. I am obviously still getting used to StreamYards because I went ahead and opened a new tab on YouTube, very, very quickly muted the video and then put in that the comment there. But I have a whole fucking comment section right off the side of my screen. I didn't need to do any of that.
The wonders of technology, huh?
I know, right? So we have just been joined by Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker. He was here for the MathPig after show that we did. Chill dude.
Yeah, he's a communist. Literally a communist. He's a commie.
Well, yeah. So I have literally 4 pages of notes.
Oh shoot.
That I have.
Maybe you should kick it off then, Stephen.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
I'm just prepared over here.
So I have it in order of how they went. So the first one, the vice presidential, which I'm not going to spend too long on because it was just awful. And then the second presidential debate because Trump got the COVID, and supposedly I am actually kind of near enough to a conspiracy theorist level where I actually don't think that he had COVID. I think it was all a publicity stunt. But anyway,
no, Stephen, he got it and God healed him. Obviously, that's what happened.
Well, yeah, clearly. He went out and he touted this excellent socialized medicine that he is arguing against. That's what healed him. Anyway, what was I going to say? So. Yeah, so I'll be doing it in. Sorry, that was the point I was going to make. So obviously there's meant to be 3 debates. He backed out of the second one because it was going to be a Zoom call debate, and he was like, "No, I don't like those. They're not proper or whatever." And I was just like, "Yeah, no, fuck you." Anyway,
the first debate he did was proper at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So, wow, yeah, I am drinking Copperberg. It is cider, which is where which is one half of
Irish
where I got the username
goddamn ciders.
Yeah, I'm supposed to be drinking port, but I didn't have any, so I was drinking an IPA. But cider and IPA doesn't have the same ring to it.
So. No, not really.
I'm just drinking a domestic lager because that's all I could afford.
Oh, Budweiser. Not, yeah,
it works.
Drink.
Well, you can. You just got to find the people to buy it for you.
No, I'm not doing that.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if you live. I mean, I know which state you live in, but I don't know if you live in the rural parts. to find the drunk guy walking out of the Casey's general store, or whatever general store you guys have there at 11 at night, and be like, "Hey man, if I give you some cash, could you buy me?" "Oh hell yeah, man! Just say no, I'll pick it up for you. Just meet me out back behind the store in like 5 minutes." And then he comes with like 230 packs of beer, and you're like, "Dude, I just want to." "Oh man, my treat, dude. You guys have fun." And he stumbles into his pickup truck and swerves back to the farm.
Yeah, the sad thing is that's probably a more likely situation that happens than you think.
Oh no, that happens.
It's
a lot.
not that I experienced that personally. I think it's more likely to.
Yeah, I live in rural Iowa, so that's I was kind of sort of playing on an experience I've actually had. I mean, I made it a little bit more comedic than what it was and exaggerated some details. But yeah, I've experienced that.
That was
it sounded like a real life recollection rather than just you making it up. So
yeah.
That was a roller coaster of a story. That was. So the first thing that I wrote down about the first presidential debate is Biden said that Trump was Putin's puppet, and it's just like I literally put my head in my hands and start rubbing my eyes as he said that. I was just like this has been literally fucking proven. He's not his fucking puppet. But before that, like, he was bombing countries that are allies with Russia. If Russia was like controlling Trump from behind the scenes, they're doing a very fucking bad job of it.
Yeah.
So like, it's like he wasn't Putin's puppet, and it's just the fact that like Putin, fucking CNN especially,
CNN, fuck, CNN is they're not the left wing version of Fox News. They're the neoliberal corporatist version of Fox News.
What's her name? Rachel Maddow.
Rachel Maddow.
That she would not give up on the whole Trump Russia story. Like she still hasn't. Like she still hasn't. It was a year ago that it was proven that like there was no.
The Trump Russia story is for because there's a difference between leftists and liberals, at least in the United States. The Trump and Russia is the liberal version of but her emails.
Yeah.
Corporatism is bad.
Yeah. I would prefer corporatism over fascism, though, because fascism already inherently leads to corporatism, but corporatism can be at least there's a way that you can reform it, even if it's hard, whereas fascism is, well, it's just fascism. That's why I shouldn't say I'm voting. I voted for Biden.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
How worked over there, by the way?
Well, for me, I just did mail-in ballot. So I requested a mail-in ballot. About like a week later, I got the ballot, and you fill out the ballot, put it in an envelope, and then put it in another envelope, and then send it back.
Remarkably straightforward.
I'm a year off from the most important election in my whole life, but you know, if I was only born like a year and a half, I would have been able to vote this year.
I think the voting age in the United States should be 15.
I think it should be 16, just so it's
15.
even.
I don't like 16 because that's not the right number. 15 should be the voting age, and 20 should be when you become a legal adult. See, 5s and 0s and 5s, man. That's the way. I have Asperger's, so I'm all about making things, like simple. 16 is just, it's like making the age at which somebody becomes adult. 18? Like why 18? No, like just 20. Just make it 20. An even, nice 20, 20. Simple as that.
I mean, there's arguments made that you can be adult here like 25 because that's when the fucking brain matures correctly. Like so, but fuck me, 15 to vote. Fuck that. No,
the reason I don't. Once humans. Well,
man, I was a dumbass when I was 15.
For me, it's not about them being stupid, and I think that these generations now are way more politically involved and educated politically than the fucking boomers are. So
educated, yes, wise and smart, no.
I know some pretty educated,
but I don't think being wise should have to be a prerequisite for voting.
No, but when you get a little bit of life experience,
if that was the case, we would have to ban all Trump supporters from voting because those motherfuckers ain't wise. But
I think I have had this like scheduled live for like a very long time. Anyway, sorry. Just because I brought the comment.
But I'm all for the legal age at which you become an adult being 25 once humans start living for like 110, 115, 120 years versus like 80 or 90. Just because 20.
And Like it's just when you're 15, man. Like your opinions on random things, let alone political ones, change so quickly. Like like from week to week, month to month.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's outliers out there like that would. Okay, I know what I'm talking about, and I have my opinions, and these are what they are, and these are the valid reasons because of this. But most people, nah, man, like, you can't trust them. There is.
I trust the youngest before I trust the boomers. But that's because the boomers just get so set in their goddamn ways that they're not willing to change. It's just like, nope, this is the way we've always done it.
The boomers have already done the damage.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so the second thing that I had was that this is specifically for the first debate, which is that Trump would not shut the fuck up, and the moderator was terrible.
Wasn't he?
Oh my god,
Christopher
Wallace, I think it was
brutal. Like
Chris Wallace,
he actually did an okay interview with Trump where he kind of held him to task on a few things, and so. Like coming up to the first debate, I was kind of optimistic a little bit, I guess, because I was kind of thinking like, he had that interview where it was like pretty good, like only a couple of weeks ago, this is maybe going to be like, all right. And then no, it just turned out to be terrible. He just couldn't control Trump.
There was one point where he pleaded to Trump was like, okay, how about we switch seats? Like that's the words of a wise and capable moderator. That's a really hard job, guys. How do we switch?
That dude could not moderate two cats fucking, let alone two presidential candidates.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I would have personally said, like two cats fighting because this is a Christian YouTube channel and we're wanting to keep it PG. But I'm
really hoping that was a meme.
Hope that was a joke.
Obviously.
Hey, I don't know, man. You had some guy on that had theology in his name, so you never know.
Well, this is true. That only ended like an hour ago, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, Crafty mentioned the Electoral College, which is just an absolutely horrible system, and it's racist. It was passed along the 3/5 compromise as a way of tilting undue electoral power in favor of the southern states.
Yeah.
She had actually said, I'm assuming she, because of the profile avatar there, you had said that you had a master's in sociology. That'd actually be kind of interesting to see your opinions or views if you would like to join. The link is up there in the comments. So
hint.
Pointing that out there. Well, yeah, very much hint.
Yeah, no, like God, Chris, he could have done a mute button, like the ability to turn the mics off. They're really good, like.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, having that power there at least, like even if you never use it, even if you had the threat, like, okay, listen, what I can do. This is top.
But yeah,
Trump,
even
Trump
if he was literally just like sitting there and just like looking at Trump, and as soon as he had kind of caught his eye, if he was just like this.
Yeah,
just slowly lowering down. Well, just like what I'm about to do, so stop it now. That sort of thing. Like I
don't understand how these moderators can't have the balls to just be like, no, stop, and just keep going until they shut the fuck up, or just make it so you can't hear what they're saying.
Chris tried his best, to be fair to him, but Trump just outchilded him. He outchilded him. He was more of a juvenile. Yeah, excellent child.
So he did try his best, like fuck it, like he tried. He did try.
He gave it the old college try, yeah.
Yeah. But it's just unfortunately it just was not good enough. So the next the next point that I had was he was also Trump, for some reason, was baffled at the idea that Antifa is an idea and not an organization.
But that's because if it's not an organization, it makes it harder for him to group a bunch of people under that label so that he can just like whitewash a bunch of people as being Antifa. Not that being against fascism is something to be like afraid of to begin with, but I mean, if you're a fascist, obviously Trump is a fascist.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I don't know. Like it was just how much he was just baffled by that notion. But I mean, it's like if it's an organization, then who's the leader?
That,
Who's the
that's
leader of
everything.
Antifa?
I've had someone comes, oh, Antifa is an organization. I'm like, oh, really? Who's the leader? Well, I don't know who that is. Oh, interesting. How many state chapters are there? Oh, I don't know. I mean, okay, so why don't they have a website? Well, I don't. It's like, okay, dude, they're not an organization. They're not.
Yeah,
It's an
No, they're just
ideological
not.
movement, not an
Yeah.
organization.
Like even the biggest argument in their favor. Well, they're split up into cells and such like that. Was like fucking. So is Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda was split up into cells, but you knew who the fuck the leader was.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like there was no question. Everybody knew like you would think that if Antifa was an organization, the leader would have probably been assassinated by now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Just not assassinated, captured and executed by the government,
Oh yeah, yeah.
buried
Um,
at sea.
So, like, obviously, one of the biggest moments of the first debate was when Trump refused to denounce white supremacists.
Oh, stand
Like,
down, stand
that-
by.
Like, okay, so if
Oh my
anybody
God.
thinks if anybody thinks that we're being like hyperbolic or that we're like reading too much into it, just the day after the first debate, it was all over Twitter. Every single Proud Boy.
Oh yeah,
was
they took
saying-
the motto: stand back
What-
and stand by.
Yeah, was no, but like they were all tweeting shit. Like they were just like, "We hear you loud and clear, Mr. President." So
Yeah.
they knew what Trump meant by that. So
Yeah,
it's just
totally.
like, you know what I mean? This is like, it's obvious what
And
he
like,
meant. Like,
And like the argument could be made that he didn't know what he was saying, but no president in the history, very few people in the history of the world are as on Twitter as much as Donald J. Trump. Like he's on Twitter
Yeah.
the whole fucking time. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows
Yeah.
exactly who follows him. He knows exactly what buttons to press to get them to get a rise out of him. So that was totally intentional. He's just fucking. Why
Yeah,
the fuck
yeah,
did he
yeah.
do that? Like the optics alone were so spectacularly, ridiculously bad. All you had to do was say, "Yes, I do denounce them."
well, yeah,
Boom,
it's so
gone.
easy.
Next
It's
question.
so easy to do that. Yes, I denounce white supremacy. Boom, done. There's no controversy.
no-
There's
notice
no
how Trump-
backlash.
When he did denounce it, because I'll give him the credit that he did in a sense denounce it, but he's been like, yeah, you know what, fine, white supremacy is bad, but you know, Antifa and BLM, like he would be like, white supremacy
Yeah.
is bad, and then immediately shift to
Yeah.
the other side. Like it's
Like-
just fucking insane.
He could have done, it would have been like a pretty big amount of damage control, but he could have successfully controlled the damage of doing that by saying, had he have gone out there and had he have said, look, I was in the heat of the moment, it was a debate stage, there's a lot of pressure here, I'm trying to win re-election. What I of course meant was absolutely I denounce all different types of every form of white supremacy, racism, all of these things, I completely denounce them. That would have been okay, and that almost would have covered for everything that he said had he have not immediately said, but somebody has to do something about Antifa, because that is literally that's
borderline
biggest
call to
fucking
action.
dog whistle. It's the biggest dog whistle that I've fucking
Yeah.
seen ever.
Oh yeah, that most certainly is.
He's like Trump. He's not a wise man, but he's not a terminally stupid man either. So he knows he's kind of clutching at straws at this stage in it. So he's just really he's kind of pandering to his kind of core audience and doing this kind of shit. Like,
Well, he knows that the white supremacists support him.
yeah, support no matter
sure.
what.
And the way that he talks about QAnon is like, well, you know, I don't know what they are, but I hear they don't like pedophilia. You know, I hear they're against that, and it just doesn't. It's like somebody saying, so what do you think of the KKK? Oh, you know, I don't know much about the KKK. I haven't heard much about them, but you know, I heard they don't like criminals. I heard they don't like those criminals walking the streets at night.
But yeah,
Oh,
They
yeah.
target
What do you think of
those
the
guys. I think that's okay.
What do you mean the Nazis? Well, they built good infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Hitler was bad, but the German economy, man, that was pretty good. You know.
It's just I don't
Completely bollocks.
like he's a funny man. I do find him a funny man, but he's just a despicable human at the same time. Isn't
Oh
he?
yeah.
really is.
Well, oh yeah, for sure.
Certainly.
For sure. There's no way. My internet obviously like staggered there just for a second. Only for a second though, so it wasn't too bad. Where am I? Mr. Parker, you actually hadn't said anything in the last
Aren't you in
couple of,
Ireland?
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Wait, me?
Because you said, where am I? Yeah, you said, where am I? Where am I? I was just fucking with you.
I meant on my notes. Mr. Parker, you
He
hadn't said
mentions
anything
thought process, he couldn't
on the
remember.
last couple points. Had you anything to add or?
You know, Trump's a fascist. Him denouncing white supremacy, not outright during the debate, was kind of a tipping point for some individuals. I think online, it's like, I was supporting Trump. Like people say this, I'm like, I was supporting Trump until he didn't denounce the white supremacists, and I'm like, he hasn't denounced any of them for quite a while, and he's clearly a huge supporter and wants to turn the tables to just say, but what about them? What about Black Lives Matter? What are we gonna do about those guys? Like, yeah, like, shut up. We don't care. White supremacy is more dangerous than your stupid concept of Black Lives Matter.
I've come to the conclusion that those who are opposed to the Black Lives Matter movement are probably just racists. They just don't like that black people are doing what they've always had to do in this country and actively fight to be treated like a normal, regular human fucking being.
Yeah.
But then you got your white 48 age women saying Black Lives Matter is just a Marxist idea, so we should be supporting them, of course. You know,
Which is dumb.
which is a completely stupid idea to say, like, we shouldn't support Marxists because they're fighting against racism. Like, shut up.
It's like, well, wait, doesn't that make Marxism like more legitimate if they're fighting racism? Which is funny because if anytime somebody says, oh, they're just Marxists, they're a Marxist organization, I'm always like, right on. Define what Marxism is for me, please. Well, it's what Karl Marx, he was writing some stuff down. Yeah, but like, what did he write down? Like, what is it? They can't give you an answer because they don't fucking know. Because with them, it's all about the buzzwords. They don't care what the words mean. They just want to use the words to label groups of people as those things because they have associated a negative stigma with those words. Words like liberal, words like socialist, words like leftist and communist and Marxist and things like that.
Yeah.
Oh no, Trump is definitely a fascist. Trump has done explicitly fascist things, like authorizing the use of military force against peaceably protesting citizens so that he can get a photo op with a church to appease his Christian cult followers, like consistently attacking a legitimized form of voting, like engaging in explicit racism, in the regimentation of society by supporting corporate power. Trump is a fascist. Through and through. There's no denying that. Trump is a fascist. He's also admitted, straight up said that he is a nationalist.
Yeah, and then the use of buzzwords by many people online is for some reason a really quick turn on for those Republicans to rally up in patriarchy to like say, I stand for America, not for Biden. And I'm like, okay, but like America should not be racist, should it not? Should we not strive for the best of America? But you guys use all these buzzwords that you don't understand at all.
Oh, definitely. Well, you got to remember, they think that making America great again isn't like opportunity for all people and, providing resources to individuals so that they could become good, contributing, productive citizens. It's, well, let's make America white and Christian again. That's what it means. So for them, like America being a racist country is making America great again to these people.
Yeah, it means bringing it back to the good old days.
Yeah,
in their mind. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Very ethno-statey altogether.
Yeah. One of my biggest argument or biggest kind of frustrated moments, I guess, with Biden was Trump has like 5 things that he is prepared, right? He's 5 lines, 5 slogans, 5 like things like normal attacks that he has memorized and he uses them all the time. And Biden didn't prepare a defense for any of them. And it annoyed the fuck out of me because going into
on the first debate.
Yeah, going into a
Okay.
debate versus Trump, and Biden for some reason thinking that he wasn't going to bring up Hunter Biden getting a fucking job in Burisma on like whatever. Like the fact that he didn't prepare for a defense for that it just
It's
annoyed me.
asinine. Yes.
Well, I mean, yes, it is that as well, but it's just the fact that like he could have prepared something that he could have just, you know, in a sentence or two and just swatted it aside as like you know, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yep,
so
I hear you. And the reason I think that Biden didn't do that is because he thought that it was going to be an easy win. I think Biden did win both of the debates. If we want
I did too.
in terms of a win-lose, which I don't generally look at debates that way always, but I think that he thought it would just be more of an easy win, that he would be able to hammer him on COVID and stuff like that, and that would be it. I don't think he was expecting Trump to interrupt him. He wasn't expecting Trump to be Donald Trump, which doesn't make sense to me. That's what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That was one of the biggest kind of the biggest annoyances for sure. But I mean, like there was a few other ones like where like what other ones did he use?
I do like
different
I
ones.
do like some of the jabs that Biden, Jeffy, that Biden took. That's my best bud, Jeffy. He great that this dude knows the shit, knows what he's talking when it comes to politics and stuff like that. He's very well spoken.
Oh, it's my name, Jeff. Oh yeah, I remember him now.
Jeff. But when he said, "Will you shut up, man?" I did think that was a good moment. And then when he said, when the moderator, when Chris was like said something about what do you say, or would you like to get a word in here, Biden? You know, Mr. Vice President or whatever. Joe Biden's like, well, it's hard to get a word in with this clown. And I was just like, I literally, this is literally the noise I made. I went, oh. I was like, oh,
it was a good moment. It was a good moment for sure. Yeah. For sure, it was a good moment.
I was just like,
kind of like skipping ahead a little bit.
More of a reason to be glad that I voted for him.
This is kind of skipping ahead a little bit to the second one, but we're going to bring it like back. It's just one very, very small thing. I'm loving the fact that Joe brought back malarkey. I love that.
Yes.
I love that. I thought that was brilliant. It's just such an underused word that I think needs to be brought up more.
It so perfectly sums up Trump, doesn't it? He's just malarkey. What is Trump? He's a bunch of malarkey. That's what he is.
Poppycock. Absolute poppycock.
Toss and portal.
You might have said that.
It's so good.
But one of the things
he did it unironically as well, which was great.
One of the,
it just fell out of his mouth. Like, Trump and his malarkey.
Yeah, that was definitely. I don't think Biden really intended it. Just like you said, it just kind of slipped out. But one of the things, it's a little off topic, but Biden said, I think it was about a couple months ago now, and when I heard it, I was just kind of like, oh shit, yeah, Biden's all right. He was talking to a group of service members, military service members, and he was talking about something that he did, and he's like, clap for that, you stupid bastards. The minute he said that, I was like, you're all right, Biden. And everybody was freaking out, and I'm like, no, it's that Biden knows how to read a crowd. Like, have you heard how the generals talk to their soldiers, calling them a bunch of stupid, you fucking crazy sons of bitches, you stupid fucking bastards? Like that was the thing that Biden was playing at. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, if you're verbally abusive to a group of American service members, they start purring like kittens. It's weird. Heavily conditioned.
Yeah.
Has like I'm not one to criticize Biden because of like stutters and misspeaks and stuff like that, because I do that myself, like, to be honest. But has he always done that, or is that a recent
thing? He's had a stutter his whole life. That's why Trump was interrupting him so much in the first debate. He was trying to throw Biden off and get it so that Biden would start, you know, stuttering and stuff like that, and throw him off his game. I think Biden definitely did way better in the the second debate, especially on COVID. In both debates, he really hammered Trump on COVID. But when what was the comment that he said people are learning. Trump said people are learning to live with it, and Biden's like, there's 200,000 people dead. People are learning to die with this, and this is under him. This is on his watch.
I was like, I love that line where Trump is like, and Biden called me xenophobic for shutting down China. Like, okay, I don't think you're xenophobic for that, but I was like,
it amazed me how long that particular, because there was this really bad timing right before he announced like some of the China travel restrictions. Pelosi and Biden had tweeted out their moves about more immigrant restrictions. And so all of the tweets that they're talking about, that they're citing as evidence, they did call him a xenophobe and they called him a racist, but it wasn't because of responses to the pandemic. It was because of the responses to the immigration move that he made the same day. And they're just conflating the two of them. And anytime it's been pointed out, they act like that's just not in reality anymore. And I'm like, yeah, okay. The rat fuckers and spin doctors that you have on your staff know exactly what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And you've got a gullible 38 to 42% of the American population that will suck that stuff up. And have.
Definitely. I gotta piss real quick and grab another beer. So give me like a couple minutes.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Yeah, so this was kind of one of my like biggest kind of issues with the overall with all of the debates was what Democrats need is an attack dog who is just going to go out and just ruthlessly spit facts and just tear down every single talking point that any sort of Republican is like going to bring up and stuff like that. Like if anybody knows who I'm talking about, Kevin, I know that me and you had kind of talked about him before on a previous podcast, a guy by the name of Richard Ojeda, who is from South Carolina.
Yeah.
He was ruthless in the type of attacks that he did. He was on fucking point, man. Like in his own like ads and stuff like that. Not only would he ruthlessly go after who he was running against, but he would also he was just like, I don't normally use this word, but he was a Chad in the sense that he was just like, if you have any questions for me, if you have any issues, he put his fucking phone number on a ad that was going out like basically across the world because it's an ad, it's on YouTube, you can just go and watch it. And he was just like, yeah, no, if you have any issues, just, call me and we'll talk. It was just, oh, what a boss fucking move. Like, that's the type of person that the Democrats need. And I'm just so like, okay, don't get me wrong. Even though I obviously preferred Bernie for the entire process, Bernie is good. He's not an attack dog. He's not. He's that's
my friend Joe.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Time, yeah.
Exactly. So, like, even Bernie wouldn't have done that. We did not have a single attack dog for any of the primaries. So, like, but like that's kind of like, in my personal opinion, what they need.
I argue the other way. I think the first debate, but in particular the second one, it was highlighted because of how relatively professional Biden could hold himself in comparison with Trump. It really highlighted the contrast between the two of them. And on such a national scale, there are some people that really do still care about how a presidential candidate presents themselves. Trump did not hold himself well at all. Now, maybe people are used to Trump being Trump and don't care about that, but I know there's something quasi-sacred about that. Those 2 to 3 presidential debates. Like you hold yourself in a certain manner, you have a certain decorum about it. And Trump fucked it out the window. He fucked out the window, and Biden kept the decorum that was needed. Like, I don't know if you noticed, every time Trump would throw a barb at him, Biden would just like laugh it off or smile or something like that. And
yeah, that's true.
Seemingly, that seemed to quite annoy Trump. Like, he'd get all, every time that would happen, like he'd all get kind of pissed off about it. So he seemed to read the room correctly. Like, obviously the way to battle Trump isn't to fight fire with fire; it's to deny fuel to the fire, so it can't grow.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
They have actually moved in a better direction. I've noticed that with a lot of the candidates, even when during the Democratic primary, Some of them don't, but a lot more of them, and I think this is probably almost all due to Bernie Sanders kind of moving the discourse, at least of the Democratic Party, more to the left. They tend not to accept the terms that Republicans give things. So if you want to talk about doing something about Social Security, you don't call it entitlement reform. Republicans call those programs entitlements instead of social insurance, because when you say entitlement, it makes it sound like it's a snotty thing, or it's, it's this precious thing. Instead of, like, if you call it social insurance, which it actually is, that just makes it sound kind of technical and wonky. But that's because it's not really that sexy. It's a pay-go system. But when they come out and say it's an entitlement, buried into that is this little dog whistle that if you really need your Social Security, it's because you're a precious snowflake. You can't make it on your own, and you need your own individual government bailout. Democrats have been falling for that rhetorical trap for 40 years minimum. And I have noticed with this particular election, they started avoiding that stuff instead of trying to, they would use the term and then try to explain their way out of it. And it's like, no, you've already lost. If you let these guys label this stuff in a way that taints it for the majority of the public and starts to color it in this negative way, and the only response you have to it is to try to give somebody an explainer as to how this bad thing now works, they don't care. This guy told them that it was bad, or at least very heavily hinted at that. And now you're trying to show them, how it was made. They don't care. They want somebody standing up and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Good idea or bad idea? Say it's a good idea. Say what it actually is. Don't use your opponent's terms, and then kick them in the dick. As often as you can. Rhetorically, of course. Kick them in the dick.
That's the problem, is that the Democrats are not willing to play the games that Republicans are willing to play.
And they need to.
Like when Michelle Obama says, when they go low, we go high. It's no, when they go low, we fucking wrap around with them and we roll around in the mud and we fuck them up.
Yeah,
and then we come out the winner. Because let's be honest, that's what the American people fucking want. And I'm not going to say it's okay, but that's what they want.
It needs to be Chicago rules. They bring a knife, you bring a gun. They hurt one of your guys, you kill one of theirs. It's as simple as that. And in politics, that sounds bad, but you're dealing with opponents that do not want democracy. They're actively going after they're actively going after a court system because they've identified it correctly as the least democratic institution. If they can gobfuck that thing with as many Republican and conservative ideologues that they can,
the circuit courts, the lower courts. That's why McConnell's been doing he was on Fox. This was a while ago, I can't remember, 2016, 2017, somewhere in there. And they were talking, I think it was in 2017, they were talking about how, because they always tried to hammer Obama as when Trump has to, he left all these court seats open. And I think it was on Tucker Carlson. I might be wrong on that, but I think it was on Tucker Carlson. It was on a Fox News program, I know that. And they were saying that to Mitch McConnell, and Mitch McConnell was like, I'll tell you why. It's because he pretty much said that, we weren't going to confirm literally anybody that Obama brought to the table. And I remember, I believe it was an interview with Charlie Rose, but I might be wrong on that. This was back in 2015, maybe 2016, where he said, I think it was 2016, early 2016, March or April. Mitch McConnell admitted that the reason the Republican Party has obstructed almost everything that Obama did from 2010 all the way to 2016 was not because, and this is what he straight up said. He said, it's not because this is bad policy. It's not because this is bad for the American people. It's because it's good for the American people. So if we let the Democrats pass it, we make the Democratic Party look more like a successful party that's capable of enacting policy that helps the people, which then pushes more people to vote Democrat. So to protect the party and to protect the interests of the Republican Party, we have to obstruct this so that and paint this stuff as, well, it's terrible policy. That's why we're obstructing it, so that we look like, the saviors saving American democracy from these evil socialists who are trying to break it down. And that he literally admitted this, and it's just fucking horrendous.
Well, the other thing too is that if you take on an oppositional role with your party, and Republicans are usually pretty good at acting as a herd, and I think you could read into that whatever you need, but the way they're able to do this kind of stuff, and just as this sort of uniform group, the only dissenters that they had in their system for the longest time had been the Tea Partiers, and they're just so far to the right that they're practically nothing. I mean, the problem is that they were the lunatics, and now they're running the entire asylum. I mean,
exactly.
Trump basically turned the entire Republican Party into the Tea Party. Well, if you run on an obstruction ticket, which is what McConnell's been doing, if you try to point that out as a Democrat and say, well, we couldn't get anything done because you wouldn't work with us, they'll be like, so there you go. You're admitting that you're incompetent.
Yeah.
Which is why the technique that they should have been doing is figuring out ways when Obama won and he had those 2 years where they took the Senate, they took the House, and they had a Dem in the White House. Those 2 years, they should have aggressively packed them courts. They needed to do that. They needed to make really aggressive moves. But Obama was one of these guys where he was going to be the uniter, not the divider, and he was somehow going to show that he was competent enough to work with these morons. And it's a complete misread of the play.
Exactly.
They're supposed to, like, if you're looking at that particular group of people and you're like, I think I can work with them. I think with compromise, we can get things done. Their goal is not to get things done. Their goal is to make you look like an idiot and ram through the creepy things that they want through that give them some kind of permanent, at least cultural control, which seems to be what they're working for
and
now.
They would rather cultural control rather than legislative control, because let's be honest here, the culture of this country tends to sway the legislation. So if they have control over the culture of this country, they have control over the country.
Yeah.
I guess.
And I hope that. Go ahead.
One of you. You're fine.
If Biden wins, I think that he will, but I can't say for sure. If the Republicans weren't cheating, like trying to limit, your mail-in ballots got to be received by, midnight or whatever on election night, or otherwise they don't get counted. Like, if the Republicans weren't trying to engage in all this cheating, I'd say, yeah, Biden's probably going to win. I think that Biden will edge out. I don't think it's going to be this 300 plus electoral votes. I see him winning anywhere between about 200 and 280 to maybe starting to approach 300. But if the Democrats are probably going to retain the House, and I really hope they take the Senate. If we get that Democratic trifecta, so to speak, they've got 2 years to show that they are just as willing to get down and dirty like the Republicans are and just ram through shit and just get it motherfucking done. I don't give a fuck what the other party says, because if they do that, then the Democrats and even the progressives are going to say, okay, hey, look, this is a party that's actually trying to do something. It's trying to get things done. It's trying to make improvements. They'll garner more support. If they don't, they're going to continue to look like the weakling party that lets the Republicans step all over their toes, and they're going to continue to bleed members, not necessarily to the Republicans, but they're just going to continue to bleed members. One of the things they absolutely have to do if they get the trifecta is expand the number of seats on the Supreme Court and stack that motherfucking court. If they don't do that one thing, the Democratic Party's probably fucking done.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do something to try to secure their power better. Usually they don't.
And that's and I think that the reason they don't is because the Democrats really don't care. They're just like the Republicans, they're corporatists. They really don't care. In a lot of cases, they're wealthy enough to be protected from all of this.
Yeah,
and they're going to get rich doing it.
If you think about it, though, the kind of just within the culture, if you're a Republican and you get in for maybe just one term or something like that, if you can be enough of a conservative, the culture warrior type,
like Trump.
You can secure a gig with right-wing media. There's enough of that, and I kind of think that if it weren't for the rise of right-wing media, Republicans wouldn't get a lot of votes at all. It's because right-wing media is consistently kicking up the kind of pearl-clutching stories designed to scare your parents and grandparents. That's why people will turn around and vote for the strong man that will protect them from, the forces of evil that are crossing the border or amongst us or whatever.
Yep.
But yeah,
boogeymen.
But for Democrats, they actually have more to lose, because for most Democrats, if they're walking into this kind of career and they think that they're going to be civil servants, a lot of Republicans, I don't think they don't have to rely on that, right? And a lot of them are actually actively against the notion of public servants. I mean, they're anti-government in a lot of cases, which makes it kind of weird. It'd be like voting for a local sheriff that doesn't want to be a cop, Yeah. And says that cops are the problem. I don't know if I would pick that sheriff. They'll. Who knows if they don't change things. The biggest thing will be most of the stuff that probably needs to happen is going to come from the squad. At least them pushing in a particular direction. Mm-hmm. If the Democratic Party starts to show signs where they're just going to isolate them, kind of, pin them in a corner, I'm like, no, we're going to do what we've always done, and that's responsible governance and all that kind of stuff. That sounds cool, but to the vast majority of people out there, that ain't going to get them anywhere. And Republicans are hoping they will. Democrats, they fuck things up. Democrats come in and clean it up and don't get any credit for it. That's generally how the cycle.
That's exactly what it is. Because Democrats are all, oh, shush, shush, quiet. Well, everything's going to be okay. They're not as tenacious is the word that comes to my mind as the Republicans are when the Republicans get into office. Like, fuck yeah, America, we're gonna get shit done. That's Republicans, and everybody's like, yeah, I'm behind that. Democrats get in there and say, oh shush, we've got this under.
But this is the first time
It'll
I've
be
seen
okay.
Republicans are actively running with a message of they're not going to do anything.
Yeah,
And it's during a pandemic, and it actually, I mean, the town that I live in, I can't see them now, but where my folks live right across town, there are thousands of people walking through their neighborhood trick-or-treating. Only about 5% of those people are wearing masks. None of their kids are. So this is a town with a population of about 10,000 people. So we're going to actually start seeing some significant community spread. It's below 60 degrees here, and it's arid right now. So it's dry and it's cool. Perfect conditions for spreading it. And ding-dongs are handing out candy to people.
most of them aren't using gloves. They're not using like even an arm or putting it in bags or using hand sanitizer before and after. And this is the thing.
And a lot of these people now,
God, the kids. Is
I live in a very red county. I would be very surprised if this county went blue in the election. I'll be stunned.
If my state goes blue, everybody's talking about, Iowa's a toss-up. No, Iowa's going Trump, dude. If you think that it's not, you don't fucking know Iowa. There's too many of these dumbass, ignorant farmers never got more. That, I mean, God bless them for what they do, even though there is no God. God bless them for what they do. They feed the world, admirable work, but they're dumb. But it's not that they're dumb, because they are quite skilled. They're ignorant. They're ignorant, and they're easy. They're sheep. They're ignorant, and they'll just follow whatever appeals to what they've already convinced themselves is true. That's what Iowa is. Yeah, we've got Cedar Rapids. Yeah, we've got Des Moines, but that doesn't do anything. And especially not when you have somebody on the Democratic ticket that isn't enthusiastic. Most people like me are only voting for Biden, not to vote for Biden, but to stop Trump. That's really it.
Yeah.
So like one of the last things that I will say on the first presidential debate, and it actually kind of ties into giving an example of what I meant by the like need and attack dog, is an attack dog, like as soon as Trump brings up corruption, right? Because of course he would, because Joe Biden and his sons is a hunter, right? As soon as he was going to bring up corruption, what an attack dog would do in that situation would say, okay, you want to talk about corruption? Let's talk about the fact that you gave millions to your daughter as a form of tax evasion. Let's talk about the fact that you have put hundreds of kids in fucking cages. Let's talk about the fact that you've done XYZ, and now you want to talk about law and order. You want to talk about fucking corruption, boy. Let's go. Like, that took, 30 seconds to say? But that hits so hard. That is going to make people at home that is looking at that go, oh shit. He just done him in. Like that sort of shit, like that resonates with everybody of all ages.
And that alludes to a really good point, because I had people tell me that if Bernie were the nominee, he wouldn't have been able to handle Trump in the debates. Yeah, he would have, because he would. Bernie's the kind of guy that would not have let Trump interrupt him. He would have been like, no, you stop. I'm the one that's talking. And the thing that Bernie would have focused on is Trump's corruption, the nepotism and the fascism and all the corruption surrounding him and everybody he associates with. That would have been Bernie's biggest point. Biggest fucking point.
To punctuate that too. The Hunter Biden story, the thing with the laptop, I think is interesting, because what's happened with that is that I think the Republicans, that thanks to the Trump presidency, they've actually kind of exhausted the people's appetite for any kind of corruption stories.
Definitely.
This idea that everyone is supposed to just clutch their pearls at the fact that there might have been a business deal going on between Trump and his buddy, or Biden and Hunter Biden, his buddy, and then it might have involved Joe. Okay, the only thing that you have with that entire story, even if you prove that all these emails are legit, is that they might have been dropping Joe Biden's name honestly or dishonestly in order to get this deal. The deal never went through, so And here's the thing, even if it did, we're coming up on 4 years of a president that never divested himself of his business interests and actively funneled foreign and domestic people towards his businesses, directly using his presidency as a way to, to benefit himself, to profit. Why am I supposed to care? Even if everything about the Hunter Biden story is completely true, take it to its worst limit. So what? The guy that you got in there has spent 4 years being corrupt as shit and has allowed 250,000 Americans to die of a pandemic because he thought it wouldn't help him politically.
Yep.
Addressing the pandemic was difficult for him and he didn't know how to spin it. He couldn't handle it. And so he let it go.
Yep.
Because he wants a second term so he can't get sued.
And I got to be honest. If the COVID-19 pandemic had never happened, I feel confident Donald Trump would probably win re-election. I think that's going to be if Donald Trump loses, if Donald Trump or rather if Donald Trump wins even now, it will be just like it was in 2016. He will lose the popular vote, but the Electoral College will put him in office. But if COVID had never happened, Donald Trump would probably would win re-election.
Yes.
That's the one thing that people are voting on, because most people are seeing that this is real and it has devastating effects, not just socially, but economically. Everyone's talking about, well, we need to open back up. How do we do that when people are sick and dying?
Well, the other problem too is that
the further we let this go on, the longer we've got to be shut down. You want to open back up, we've got to rein this problem in. And that's a point that I haven't really heard a lot of Democrats making, is that the only way we can open back up is if we rein this problem in and bring it under our control.
Well, the other problem is too is like I think the results of the election are going to be those that if Trump wins this time, if he does get the second election, it will be because people, a slight majority of people, wanted the guy that wasn't going to do anything. He wasn't going to do things that would possibly inconvenience them during an international health crisis.
Yep.
That'll be disappointing.
That brings up another point from the first debate, as it was carried on to the second one, is Trump's bloviating and saying, oh, there's a vaccine weeks away and that we're going to mobilize logistically the army.
That's his contractor. That's his contractor. Like 2 weeks. Yeah. 2 weeks.
It's only 2 weeks away, and then 2 weeks later, the second debate happens. It's only 2 weeks away, and like I have the best general in logistics in the army, and he's going to mobilize.
I was on Regeneron. It was really good. People say it's not a cure. I say it's a cure. It's like a cure.
Like how is he allowed to get away with this fucking blatant lies? Like,
because it's America, man. Oh, yeah. This is America. People love bullshit.
But that's such a blatant. That's beyond the pale. That's saying
Americans,
you'll be back to your normal lives in a couple of months. That's a fucking bald-faced lie. Like, you just won't. Like,
this was a bad trend when George W. Bush was running, because people were doing the same thing they kind of did with Trump. Like, oh, I like this because he tells it like it is. Like, no, he just is simply enough and says stupid things that you totally.
You want to know what it is? You ever notice?
He's not lying to you.
You ever noticed how Donald Trump will start on, but then it pivots to something. But now let me tell you about it. He doesn't ever finish a thought. He just rambles on, and this is what he does. And I don't know if he does this on purpose. I think that he probably does, because I don't think Donald Trump is like literally just dumber than a box of bricks, but I don't think he's like, intelligent and well-spoken. It's that he knows how to speak in a way. What he does is he speaks in a way where when people hear what he's saying, they can fill in the gaps in what he says with their own biases, making it seem like Trump is saying everything that person wants to hear, and Trump knows that, and that's why the people that don't like him hate what he says, and why the people who do like him love what he says.
The trick is to tell stories that never go anywhere. Like that time I went to Shelbyville, I needed a new heel for my shoe. So I went over to Morganville, which is what we called Shelbyville in those days. Sorry, Simpsons reference. He basically does Abe Simpson's stories that go nowhere as like, those are his stump speeches. It's like, I don't remember where you started.
It's blatant salesman speak, like, is what it is. Like, it's like, it's like, okay, I need to have an awkward conversation with my customer. I'm going to call him up. We don't really want to have this conversation. Oh, how is it going? This and that and that and this, and okay, look, perfect. We've resolved this issue, and the first of all, the customer's like, I'm very happy with that. Put the phone down. Was like, I didn't learn anything from this. Right. That's why he's been doing that for fucking decades.
Yeah.
at a macro level, and he just applied that to the presidency. That's exactly what's happened.
Yep.
I was
But-
actually I think it was pretty damn succinct and
It-
accurate.
It would be funny if there hadn't been a pandemic where he literally fucked the dog, kind of, not literally, but he screwed up so badly that hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, we're probably going to hit about 500,000 people dead by New Year. So
Oh, yeah.
whether he's swearing in again for a second term now, and that's the thing that's really going to disappoint me. If this dude wins again, he won despite the fact that hundreds of thousands of Americans have died, which means that the majority of people, even if it's a slim majority, went out and voted. None of those people can claim that they give a goddamn about community or their fellow American. They don't care. They went and voted for the guy that sold them the line of shit over the
A
phone.
box of shit telling them when you open it, there's going to be a brick of gold in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the only way that I would be somewhat comfortable with Donald Trump being president again is if both the House and the Senate go Democrat, because they'll just block everything that he fucking does, at least for the first 2 years. But the problem with that is, come 2022, Republicans are running. Well, we need the Republicans in to be able to work with this president to make America great again. And then that's where I see probably not the House, but Republicans retaking the Senate. If he wins, whether he wins, Democrats will keep the House. But if he wins and Democrats retain the Senate, there will not be free and fair elections in 2022 or in 2024. And it would surprise me if the Supreme Court did something that allowed Trump to run for re-election in 2024. And I mean that honestly.
Yeah, and isn't that such an awful waste of productive time that could be spent? I don't know, bettering the country and bettering everything.
Yeah.
It's like what like two American. I'm presuming the two of you are Americans, yes?
Yeah.
What's
Well,
your
me,
opinion?
Parker, and Jefferson are, yeah.
Yeah, well, I know Stephen isn't. I live 20 minutes down the road from Stephen. I know he's Irish. But what's your opinion overall? This is a small little tangent. Shouldn't be no more than 5 minutes. What's your opinion overall on the two-party system? What do you think of it?
It's a duopoly, and it's
Yeah.
two images of the same party. It's like heads and tails. It's two different images, but they're on the same coin. It's one coin with two different sides to it. That's what it is. And it's wrong. See, I don't believe in political parties. I think political parties should just be straightforwardly abolished. A lot of people disagree with me, but I have to be honest, I've never heard an actual cogent argument for political parties, because all it does is creates this in-group style thinking and this sense of ideological purity that then create this, well, I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to cooperate with the other side because it's all about us and what we want. Fuck them. And then that deters the success of a functioning democracy or republic, which is a type of democracy.
Leo, would you be rather on the side of people put their vote as such behind ideas as opposed to people? And,
Yeah.
and parties, or how? Yeah, ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I
That's-
believe in
that's a
abolishing
fucking
political
strange-
parties, because then somebody can't say, well, I'm a Republican and so is the president, and if you vote for me, we can work with him. No, it's now you're forcing, and at the same time, ban radio ads, ban internet ads, and ban television ads. And ban abolish political parties. Now what you've done is you've forced all the candidates, number one, to run on their ideas, not their parties. Number two, you forced them to get on the ground and actually talk to the voters instead of just running a bunch of mudslinging ads. And so now what you'll see is that people will be more inclined to vote for those who actually can make sense, the people that can go out there, the people that will go out there and talk to the citizens, share their ideas, and explain what it is they're going to do. Now you've got people voting based on ideas, not based on, well, I heard this person say this about this candidate, so I'm not voting for him, or, well, they're a Republican, so they have my vote. I don't care what they believe.
How would you
I've heard people say that.
I reckon that would work on a town and a city level. How does that work when you extrapolate it out to the US?
How does it not?
I don't think it would.
Why not?
It's so huge. It's so massive. It's so huge and massive.
So
I think
The money would win then. Because
at the same time you would be abolishing Citizens United, and you would have strict guidelines for how political money is to be spent and who can donate to campaigns and how. So I mean, it's not like one of the things is it's not like you can just do one of these things and everything is fixed. If we want
Okay.
to fix things, there's a whole ass set of
Oh, I
things
agree.
that need to be changed. And one of those starts with getting the money out of politics, shutting down that revolving door between the political system and the corporate system in this country.
I agree with that, but I think probably one of the weirder things that would happen if, say, there was enough of an influence and things pushed its way and they got a federal ban, right? So we had a public election system for federal elections. You'd end up having what you end up getting in the United States would be this patchwork of stuff that would happen at the state level, where states you'd still have, you might still have privatized elections. Essentially, there's no public funding mechanism for it. So until the states started doing that and making that something that they wanted at that level, unfortunately, most of the politicians before they go federal, they started off at a state level and sometimes even just a county level. So they've already gotten into that kind of pay-for-play politics already, and sort of the influence peddling game. And then if they switch it over, so unless you can get it to kind of work across all election systems,
I think we could.
I think eventually we could. Yeah, I mean, it would be hard to do, but I think you could do that. But I think that that there's a notion that I've heard from some people that have argued, we just need a public election mechanism at the federal level. Like, yeah, the federal one's not going to be enough.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think
It's not enough.
I think it's a good start, but you won't see that significant of change. And the bad thing is that if people drag their feet on trying to make it happen in all in all 50 states, the kinds of improvements that you wanted to show as proof, like, see, we were right, this is a better way of doing it, you wouldn't see those right away. And then opponents of it could turn around and point to that and say, see, it's ineffective.
Yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of abolishing political parties unless number one, we're getting rid of all money in politics at the federal and state level, and number two, we're abolishing political parties at the federal and the state level. But even beyond that, like, you have to ban television ads, ban internet ads, ban radio ads. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not just ban political parties, everything is fixed. That is one aspect of a whole agenda of things that need to be done to make this country much better.
Would you be better? Would you be more comfortable with the notion of, let's say you have political parties, but you have a public election, so political parties have to be registered with the government?
I just don't believe in political. I don't like labels. That's what political parties are. They're labels that then people divide themselves alongside. And what that does is it deters the cooperation and the compromise that is inherent to the proper functioning of a democracy. That's part of the reason the United States is where it is because of political parties.
Sorry to interject there very quickly. So we're joined by Keela. Keela, can you hear us? Can you speak? Can you do?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfectly.
How are you?
Very good. Very good. And yourself?
I'm doing well.
Very good. Good stuff. So what do you have? I presume you've been listening, you've been commenting along the whole time. What do you have to say about what we've been talking about?
Well, I mean, it's interesting there, the discussion that you've been just having, because I've been involved in politics for longer than I care to admit. And a lot of it is actually right now, especially among young people, is why do we need political parties? And we should just abolish them and have this, mix of people. Banning political parties, or what you were suggesting, Leo, and here's the problem with it. Banning political parties as it stands is actually going to reflect better on the wealthier people.
Well, that's assuming that they can still control the political system. If you ban money in politics, is the way it puts, you don't have that problem.
Yes, but
if you limit how much people can donate, who can donate, how they can donate, you don't have to worry about it.
Here's the problem. Here's the one problem with that. Donations, and we see it in Ireland, we see it in the UK, we see it in Germany in particular, and we see it in the US. There's brown envelopes. There's slipping under the table. There's, here, come to my party and I'll buy. The problem with it is the political system and the economic system. Who controls who? And it's actually right now, particularly in the US, it's the economic lobbyists that control the Senate, that control
control more than just the Senate.
Yeah, that control the House, that control every aspect of our lives. So it's not just a fact of just get rid of political parties and that'll solve the political crisis. It won't.
Oh, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe that just abolishing political parties fixes everything. Like I said, abolishing political parties is one small aspect of a whole slew of things that need to be done to improve the political system. Abolishing political parties, abolishing money in politics, making it practically impossible for lobbyists and special interest groups to donate to political parties, or to political campaigns, publicly funded campaigns, highly regulated campaigns, things like that.
I mean, I guess I would push back on that a little bit, at least from this perspective. What the biggest advantage to having political parties, I mean, it can lead to tribalism, but that's just sort of human nature anyway. But the biggest advantage is that political parties have platforms, and you can make an argument that that's going to lead to some kind of, appeals to purity and tribalism. But the thing about that is that if you have something like a platform, say like that's enunciating some of the values that you would get out of like democratic socialists or something like that, people know what they're kind of getting from that group. Now, those groups are going to tear into each other and give each other unflattering nicknames and do all this kind of stuff. But people know kind of what they're getting with that, and unfortunately in U.S. politics, you got a Democrat, you have a Republican, and then you have independent. And independent is such a mixed bag. That person could be to the right of Hitler or to the left of Trotsky, and you have no real way of knowing it until you hear them talk about certain ideas.
Well, the other thing that's beneficial about political parties, and I'm not party political at all at the moment, but as I said, I have a master's in sociology. I've been studying this for a long time. I've been involved in politics on an activist level. And one of the things that's beneficial about having the political parties is that aspect of you know what you're getting. You have to have a constitution. You have to have particular rules. You have to follow the rules. If you had the absence or the void of that, you're still going to get grouping together. Look at the European Union. You still have groups coming together that are not political parties. They're associated affiliates.
Yeah.
So if you take the European Union as an example, they have groupings of conservatives, liberals, progressives, far left, far right.
That's fine.
You're going to get that anyway. And the issue is who holds them accountable if there's not the structure of a party. And if you don't have that structure, and one of the greatest examples of this is actually the Occupy movement. I was completely in favor of the Occupy movement for what it was. But that lack of leadership, that lack of structure led to, I don't know, Stephen, Kevin, if you saw what happened in Ireland, for example, you had about 3 or 4 people coming into Occupy Dame Street, for instance, who were anti everything. Any trade unions, they hate trade unions, they hated political parties, they hated any kind of structure, any kind of form, and they would block any progressive movement towards change.
Yeah, that would be the influence of David Graeber, who was sort of the philosophical godfather of the whole thing, even though he wasn't as I've read quite a few of his books. I really liked him. Kind of miss him. He just died this year. He was I believe he classified himself as an anarcho-syndicalist or an anarchist. And so some of that movement attracted some people on that side where they're just like, nah, we don't want any structures at all.
Yeah, it's one of those issues that the loudest voice is the only voice. And that's part of the problem. So when you have a party structure, the issue is, when it comes to the UK and the US in particular, is that two-party thing. The other big issue is the careerist politician. I love the idea that you can only run for election twice. I would say 10 years, you're out. It gets rid of the careerism. If people think that you are going to have a job for life, then they're going to protect that job for life. And they're going to fudge on the issue. So you saw in 2016 with Lindsey Graham saying, if Trump comes in, if Trump is elected, if he is our representative, it will destroy us and we will deserve it. Flip forward to after the election, he was saying Trump is the best thing since sliced bread. Because if he didn't, he was off the ticket.
Yeah, I would say, because I'm of two minds on that. I don't think that I would have no problem with term limits being eliminated. I don't think term limits are that great an idea. The problem is in the United States that there isn't a good mechanism for a vote of no confidence or a recall.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest problem with it. If there was a quicker, more democratic way of getting somebody that people, you get this person in there, they can basically run for re-election as many times as they want. However, even after they've won an election, they're not stuck in there for 4 years or 6 years guaranteed. People can kind of like put something, and it doesn't have to be this massive.
Are you saying something like where? Let's just take Lindsey Graham for an example. He's North Carolina, I believe.
He is. He
Yeah.
is North Carolina.
So
He's up for election.
He's
If
South
enough of
Carolina.
the voters, if they took a poll and a certain percentage of the voters wanted to have a sort of a referendum vote on him to take him out at any point, that vote would have to go forward. And if they vote to remove him, then he is removed and replaced, or what?
He's removed, and then a special election happens. Yeah.
Okay.
It would
Well,
require
what
a
we
lot
would
of-
call a by-election.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would.
So-
I think that you would have to streamline a lot of voting processes, and the
Yeah.
U.S. isn't ready for that.
I
yet.
think ranked
The-
choice
the-
voting could be a way of doing that too.
I mean, you in Ireland we have the by-election. So if a politician resigns or dies or whatever, or is sacked, we have the by-election, and therefore new candidates will put themselves forward, and there'll be another election. The only problem with that is, especially on the US scale, is that it's so expensive. It is so time-consuming.
Yeah.
So that would be the only thing. So what I'd love to see is, like with the presidential understanding, because there's no law about it. You can run for election again and again and again as president, but there is a standard there for US president that you only go for re-election once. So if you're voted in, you only go for re-election once, and then you quit. That's it. That's the only. And it dates back to Washington. He decided to leave office to drive the democracy in the country forward, and nobody has gone beyond that. So they only serve for 2 terms. If that was the same on the Senate level, on the House level, you wouldn't see so much absolutism when it comes to protecting their own interests and protecting their own jobs, because they're only in the Senate or they're only in office for a certain amount of time, and then they have to create their own replacement. And who's going to
I think that ties
replace
back
them?
into
So it actually
abolish
gives them the
political parties,
incentive
too.
to train the next person.
The only problem I
Again,
have with
that's
that,
a
though, is
little
that
bit
if you
more
end up getting-
complicated.
Yeah, I
Go
mean,
on.
if you run into a situation like, say, that they all have term limits, and they get to it, and you can't vote for somebody that you want, that's where it gets kind of weird. It's one thing to be like, most of the time, term limits are usually brought up to the fact that, like, if we put somebody in this position over time, they're just going to turn into a dirtbag, and then they need to time out, right? But in some cases, you get somebody in there who's a very effective public servant, very helpful to the country, and if they have a term limit, they're just done. They never got a chance to really get anything off the ground.
But again, I think that's the driving force. You, as a politician, as someone in politics, it is your job to create your own replacement. And what's happening, and it's not just in the US, it happens here, it happens here in Ireland, it happens in all over the world, really, that is democratic, or that seem democratic, is that there is no one creating their own replacement. Their only interest seems to be, and this is part of the party politics that people have an issue with, they're only in it for themselves, because it is their livelihoods at stake.
I
So
agree with
if you remove that incentive to protect their own position, then they're forced into a different frame of mind where they have to create their own replacement. And because they want the policies that they want to see pushed through, they're going to be more active in training the next generation.
I agree with you that would be better. However, this is just me being cynical, and I'm in a bad mood about Americans in general.
Yeah.
People are being dumb right now. I don't think that they would. I think that even if you I mean, I get what you're saying. They should have a system in which the incentive is that they need to create their own replacement. The bad thing about it is that many of them, like somebody like a Pelosi or Schumer, they should be doing that anyway, right? You never know if there could be an uprising. They're not motivated to do it now, obviously, and they have the added benefit of they're probably secure in their district. They're going to win a re-election. But even if you timed them out so that you're a senator twice only, you get to do this job for 12 years, and then you got to find something else, they still wouldn't. I mean, Americans are remarkably, we like disposable things, including jobs sometimes. I think they would just rip and run.
What do you
Quite
mean when
possibly.
you say rip and run? I don't know.
You would get people that go in there, know that they're only in there for a little bit of time, try to do something to benefit themselves as quickly as possible, and then get the hell out of there. And they wouldn't care about making sure somebody that has the same values and same strengths and same rhetorical drive to follow in their footsteps and bring up, the rear guard. They wouldn't do that. I think.
That's a very cynical way of looking at it. That is a very cynical way.
I think it's cynical, but I think, and I can't speak for any other country, but I think definitely the United States, at least under the current system,
this country
probably
voted.
what would happen.
We voted in Trump. This is a remarkably cynical, ignorant population. So yes,
Definitely. I got to run to the bathroom. I'll be back.
I think we would be corrupt enough to disappoint in either direction. I think we have the capacity to let everyone down in lots of different ways.
Yeah. So obviously I kind of missed like a tiny little portion there. I missed Keela coming in. Your accent is fantastically Irish.
Yes, it is. It's a mix between Dublin. I'm from Dublin. I'm actually living back in Dublin. I've lived in Cork for 7 years, and I went to university in Maynooth. So it's
I was about to place
the Kildare twang is there as well.
I was about to place it as Limerick, to be honest, kind of a little a genteel version of Limerick. So I suppose Dublin, Cork, and a bit of Maynooth. Yeah, that equates to Limerick, I suppose.
Yeah, that'll probably do it.
We got 3 Americans and 3 Irish.
Perfectly balanced. Yeah.
And if it makes you feel better, a lot of my ancestry is from Ireland.
Yeah, we have stakes in this.
Yeah,
we do.
The impact on the Irish state is huge when it comes to the US elections, and that's why you'll see a lot of Irish people hopping in to look at the debates. And I mean, one of the debates started at like 3:00 in the morning for us, and I had a group of 20 people watching it on Zoom, and we were all watching it. So, there are high stakes for the Irish society here because the UK voted for Brexit. A lot of the exports, what they're hoping is that a lot of the exports will transfer from the UK that we're not able to get to the UK now, will have a new trade deal with America. That's the new talking point from Leinster House anyway.
I've got a question, a big question, because there's 3 people who are, I know at least 2 of them are Irish proper. I don't know if Keela is, but I know Jeff will probably know about this more than I do. And the only reason I ask is, I'm going to be honest, I don't know that much about it. And also, if I'm being honest, I've heard what, at least to me, given the knowledge that I have on it, which isn't very much, I have heard what might be considered reasonable cases on both sides. Is Brexit really that good of an idea? Or is it this good idea, or but even if it's not, is it the absolutely 100% completely horrendous idea that it's often spun at? Or is it kind of in the middle, like where, it's not a good idea, but I mean, it's bad, but it's not like the worst fucking thing that's ever happened. So just tell me what's going on there.
I'm gonna hand it over to both Keela and to Kevin, mainly because Keela, you sound like you know what the fuck you're talking about, and Kevin, you work in marketing, so I mean, like, it's kind of more so your forte than it is mine. So I'm just you guys.
Sure.
Brexit is basically like, let's build the wall of the UK. It's actually broken down a lot of the goodwill, from what I'm hearing from friends in the European Parliament, between the UK. Now, the only reason why the UK could actually get away with this was because they still retained the pound.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Is that like the only thing that would really make Brexit for Britain workable is the fact that they still have their own currency.
So what it looks like, there's been questions on borders. There's been question on trade. It's now looking as though they're going to exit without a deal, which a year and a half ago, the UK
hard, right?
Parliament, that's hard.
Does
Brexit.
that mean that they just leave without any deals and anything?
No
with
trade
anybody
deal.
Else? Just we're leaving. You're on your fucking own, kind of.
No. The World Trade Organization steps in at that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with World Trade Organization levels, which is much, much higher than the EU levels. So if you look at countries outside of the EU, bringing stuff into the EU,
Well, I suppose
it's
Dave
a
is
hell of a
British
lot.
here, so.
Yeah, here's Dave. Dave can tell you. But
Die!
yeah,
That's the point.
it is very much the let's build the wall of the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
just
it's batshit crazy. It's going to cost us a fucking fortune.
Mm.
Wait there, can we swear
And-
here?
How
from
popular
an operational
is it
an
with
operational level from like I work in kind of a company in Ireland that's heavily involved in imports, exports, and just because of the nature of it, because where we're situated, the most of our imports do come from the UK, and upper management are in a tizzy over this. They really don't know what's going to happen. They have contingency plans, further contingency plans, just in case whatever might happen. It's going to be if they just bomb out on a no deal issue. It really will fuck up a bunch of businesses here in Ireland.
Can I ask a quick
which is
question?
really
Even,
unfortunate.
so I'm assuming this would still be maybe like slightly better, but still an overall terrible thing, even if there was a deal.
Yes.
If there was a deal,
Or would
It
that just
wouldn't-
depend on the deal?
it would depend on the deal. It would
Okay.
definitely depend
So
on the
it's-
deal.
yeah,
It
there's
would have
no-
been
No,
it would have been better.
For Ireland, maybe, but for us, it's going to, regardless of the deal, it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, that's because you voted.
When does Boris Johnson? I don't know how if you guys have term limits, but when does he either A, go up for re-election, or when is your next? I don't know if the word federal would be the right word, but when does Boris
National.
Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah, when is the next national election?
4.5 years.
So it's 4 years and 6 months between each election then nationally.
No, 5 years at the moment.
Okay. Okay. And your last election
It
was
was-
2018 or 19?
Start of this year, or the very end of last year.
Okay. So, that's right. Yeah. Yep. I don't even think I should ask how the fuck did Boris Johnson get elected? Because I asked, how the fuck did Donald Trump get elected? There's just that many stupid.
Well, again, it's important because it comes back to how was Donald Trump elected.
Yeah.
You had in the UK Corbyn versus I can't even think Boris Johnson. So what happened was what would have happened in the US if it was Trump versus Bernie Sanders. You had the right-wing media come lashing out very, very heavily against Corbyn.
Socialism. Was that what it was?
Yes.
Oh, even worse. Even worse.
Yeah, Jeremy-
Anything that
Jeremy-
was done was criticized. Now, I'm not a big fan of Corbyn. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a big fan of Corbyn. But it was bombardment after bombardment after bombardment. And that would have happened with Bernie Sanders. And the problem with politics is that once you're involved in politics at all, even as a commentator, you see things that normal people or most people that are not clued in will see. So your instinct is, why can't everyone see this? And because I see this, everyone else has to see it. And the problem is the rest of the country are not where you think they are. So as from a sociological standpoint, what we try to do is we look at where people are at instead of where we would like them to be. And unfortunately, the US and the UK are deeply conservative when it comes to voting.
Yeah.
Maybe not when it comes to their attitudes. You'll see them get on the BBC and throw a load of tripe at the BBC, but those same people will go and vote for conservatives.
Yeah.
Because it is possible to hold those left-wing views or those centrist views while also looking right when it comes to voting. Because you think
I
that's
think
what
the
you
problem
should do.
is, I'm not sure in the States. I think the problem is in the UK is the majority of the UK that votes Conservative are small c Conservative.
Yeah,
They're not your right wing.
well,
And the Tory party was very much made up of that, and that's how we ended up into the Premiership before Theresa May, which was David Cameron. It's very much middle ground conservatism.
yeah.
And
Here,
it was only a small part of the Tory
What party? And I'm sorry if this question comes off as super ignorant. Was David Cameron? Which political party did he belong to? Tory.
Conservatives,
Yeah.
Tory.
Okay. So is the party actually called Tory, or just like Tory, like a not a euphemism, but like an acronym for something, or?
Yeah, they're just kind of the.
An insult, I thought. I've no idea.
So I did. Oh Jesus, please. Okay, no, I remembered. I did have a question. Other people can answer, but I want Dave to go first since he's actually English and lives in England. Was because I heard that Corbyn would have been better than Johnson, but still might not have been entirely the kind of competent leader that the United Kingdom needed. Is that true? Is that false? Is it kind of mixed?
I couldn't judge it. He seemed like a boring politician, which tends to make very good leaders, but not very interesting.
So is the Labour Party an actual leftist party? I've heard it's not, but then I heard it is. I've heard it's more akin to like the Democratic Party in the United States, where it's
no, God no.
Okay, so
Is
it leftist?
It's there are two big factions in it.
So it is kind of like the Democratic Party, where you got the liberals and the leftists.
Yeah.
Apart from the fact that the entire party is left of centre,
Okay.
unlike your Democratic.
I don't
who is
agree with
mostly
that.
right. Say again?
I don't agree with that. I think there's a
You don't
lot of
think it's all left?
centrists. Yeah, I think
I
there's
think
a
they're
lot of
but I still think
centrists.
they're left.
Mm.
There's other sort of left
They're
sort of
definitely
left.
left compared to Americans. I mean,
Well,
Yes.
oh yeah, definitely. I knew that much. I just because I've heard people say, "Oh well, you know, UK's Labour Party is kind of like the Democratic Party," and I've heard other people like, "No, it's not quite like the Green Party in the United States, but it's in between
David
the Green and
Cameron-
the Democratic."
Wait. David Cameron would be a Democrat in the States.
yes.
Okay. Obviously, Boris Johnson would be a fucking Republican. What about Theresa May? Would she have been Democrat or Republican or maybe
She'd
Libertarian
have been
Party?
Republican.
Okay.
Should have been.
Yeah, I knew
Republican.
I knew that she was fairly conservative. And again, if I sound really ignorant asking this question, I apologize. Was she like terrible conservative, or was she like she's conservative but she's not like a completely incompetent leader?
She reminds me a lot of she's the UK equivalent of Hillary Clinton because she was one of those aunties. But she was asked, I think she was asked what was the most embarrassing thing she ever did, or the boldest thing she ever did, and she was like rolling around in hay that she shouldn't have been in, or something like that. It was
Running through the
cringeworthy.
wheat fields or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, running through the wheat
Where
field.
does Hillary fit on police power? I mean, the thing that makes me think Theresa May is further right usually than Clinton is, in my head, Clinton is not as harsh about applying
Oh,
police
she
power.
kind of is.
Clinton
Depends
That's
on
why
what
I'm asking.
time period. If we're talking Hillary Clinton 90s, early 2000s, oh man, I mean, she's the one that said the super predators in reference to black
she was
people, and we need to
psycho.
bring them to heel. But like,
All right, then I'll completely agree. Hillary Clinton is like Theresa May.
I would put Hillary Clinton as like a moderate Republican.
Yeah.
I don't know why she ran in the Democratic Party.
When the thing came out about Monica Lewinsky, she had people follow her. Clinton had people follow her and harass her down the street for 3 years.
Which I
For
do
3
agree with.
fucking years, going into every time Monica Lewinsky tried to get a job, and she even tried to actually change her name at one point, and they would find her, and they were paid by Clinton to follow this woman who made a mistake. She was followed for 3 years and reminded of that mistake. That's scary. Like that. I mean, Theresa May is not that fucking clever, in fairness, but or not that vindictive. But you never know what
Maybe not
would
that.
happen.
Probably not. And I don't. Theresa May doesn't strike me as being quite that determined either. I mean, that's almost
No.
like
That's
a
something I got
single-minded.
from her too. She didn't seem, just determined. She didn't seem very determined on things. Like when I would see her speak and stuff in some videos, I'm just like, this.
Blah.
How the fuck is this woman running a whole ass country right now? I don't get it.
I can tell you why.
Two are American.
What's that?
Are you sure
I-
you two are American?
Why?
You know something about another country's politics.
Oh yeah, but you got to remember, Americans think that the whole world is the United States of America, and if it's not, well, then it doesn't fucking matter. They're a shit whole country anyway, and it just, the fact that so many Americans are proud of their, like I always say, the United States really is a post-intellectual society. There are so many people that are proud of being ignorant, and I'm just like, I just don't get it. I don't. I really don't.
I did kind of want to point out something because David brought it up, kind of talking about, and I thought it was a good point that that Keela brought up was the idea of like most people do get a little bit, they tend to vote more conservative than they probably initially let on. And I think that comes from two things. Usually, probably the most indicative thing that you can tell about American voters, if you find out that they're evangelical Christians and they feel very strongly about abortion, they're going to vote for a Republican candidate.
Oh, 100%. They don't care. That's
It's something like it's something like 89%. It's more indicative than any other trait.
Does religion,
race, gender,
does religion determine how somebody votes in the UK, or is it not as like sort of solidified here in the US?
Relatively, well, there's definitely a more conservative lean on them.
Yeah.
Say. But it tends to depend more, to be honest, the sort of town you grew up in.
Okay.
But it seems to me like, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if you guys have this impression with the U.S. conservatives. It seems to be you've got your sort of hardcore religious ones. You kind of have libertarians who basically want to burn down the structure of the government in general, but you never know exactly how they're going to vote. But then the other people that end up going a little bit more conservative, it seems to me that they end up going that way on a very childish narrative. It's usually capitalism is the country making money and socialism is the country spending too much money. And so if they start getting a little bit nauseated about the idea of the country going into debt, and they've been sold these these bad economics.
We have the same narrative of our Labour governments actually tend to have been fiscally better.
Yeah,
but that's not how it's sold.
Yeah, and you have three people here from Ireland who have grown up in a country traditionally that would have voted literally what the priest said from the pulpit. And in the last 30 years, we've kind of broken from that as we've emerged in the world. And well, as we emerged in the world, one of the biggest problems with Ireland was in the formation of our state. We had the Archbishop actually changing things in our constitution with the help of De Valera. So they actually wrote our constitution. So you'll see, like a few years ago, the blasphemy law came up again when Stephen Fry was asked on the meaning of life about God, and someone actually wanted to charge him with blasphemy, and there was an investigation. There was actually an investigation. So we didn't realize these laws were still in our constitution, which is mental. So even in the last 2 weeks, the mother and baby homes, there was a report into them. They're now locking them away for 30 years. We're not allowed to see them. We're not allowed to know what's in them. The only people, and this is what it comes down to. You have the two largest parties now in coalition, and you have the smaller parties fighting to make sure that those who are affected by the mother and baby homes actually have access to their information. And that wouldn't have happened without the smaller parties. That's for sure. That's for absolute sure. So we have always voted. You would vote Fianna Fáil because your family voted Fianna Fáil. You would vote Fine Gael because your family voted Fine Gael, or because the priest told you this is the politician to vote for. It was absolutely ingrained. And only since I think the early 1990s that started to change, that started to break as we came into the European Union, as we saw how other countries actually ran their countries, because we only had, at the time, we had TG Cahir, which was an Osceola, an Irish speaking one, and we had RTE, which was the state-sponsored network, which in their contracts, even now, have, and I quote, it is, what's the quote? I think it is not permitted to go against the policy of the government of the day.
And that which we pay our lovely TV licenses to support.
So I'm assuming in Ireland, the church, at least traditionally speaking, had a large role in the political system.
Massively.
They did, and then in the last, and then in the last in the last 6 years, just to finish this point, in the last 6 years, we have had two major referenda. One, a repeal of an abortion ban, and the other to permit same-sex marriage. So in the last 10 years, Ireland has come into the 21st century.
So does Ireland have any laws that are just being like subverted, like with the US? It's like in the Constitution. I mean, technically that's a law, but does Ireland have anything that's like a separation of church and state, or is that not even anywhere on the book?
No,
No, they
no,
were
you can't
glued.
even talk about it.
Okay.
You
They were
can't.
glued. They were glued. And I mean, you had said that it was kind of funny that there was an anti-blasphemy law. I had been doing fucking atheist call-in shows for 4 years at that point. I was fucking shitting myself. But it was yeah, no, there's I wish there was a separation of church and state here.
What
but
about
no,
the
they
UK?
were like,
See, I'm not convinced anymore. I
Does
think
like-
the problem is separation of church and state. I think is what has led to the US's current state.
Yeah, but so does the Church of England have much political sway? I don't even know how much of the UK is a member
Okay,
of
the Church of England now has done a very good, or the monarchy and the Church of England have managed to very successfully position themselves so you don't really know how much power they've got.
Yeah.
Yep.
And how much
They have a
power-
certain amount of public power, but they've got more in the back.
Well, in Ireland, we still have the priests on the board of directors and stuff like that of the schools.
Mm.
They still run the schools.
Yeah,
And what's funny, I'm telling you, go check your local schools. But what was funny was the Bon Secure the Bon Secure nuns who were responsible for the travesties in the Magdalen laundries, the travesties of the mother and baby homes. They still have all their land.
Oh, yeah.
And what was interesting was we were talking about a proper national maternity hospital. Lads, you'll remember this, I'm sure, in the last 2 years or so. And they were actually going to give the contract to the Bon Secure nuns.
Just
So Keela, I did have a really quick question. Are you Northern or are you Irish proper?
Oh, I'm Irish. I'm
Okay.
Irish.
Okay.
I'm a
Okay.
dog.
Don't let Matt Pig hear you say that.
I was just going to say, like, can you not hear the Dublin accent? Like,
I'm a dog.
I don't know
I
Irish
hear, no,
accent,
no,
like.
here, listen for it.
You
All
have
you
to
got to
remember
do is
when it-
piss one of them off slightly, and it's blatantly obvious which is which.
Yeah.
Because
You have to-
Northern Irish just goes really fucking angry, ranty.
Yep.
So
Much
Dave,
more musical and
I had a
lyrical and-
question. How much, and again, forgive any ignorance in the question, how much power does the monarchy in the United Kingdom still actually have in terms of like influencing legislation and being able to like that raw political power?
You have this interesting thing, right, whereby technically they have absolute power.
Sorry, interject. Sorry, Dave, before you go on. Folks, I'm gonna have to bounce out there now. Sorry for the hard out. I just have to go now. Been great fun having y'all there.
Nice meeting you, Kevin.
No, absolutely. Same with you. I'm sure we've spoken previously. Likewise to everybody. I'm sure we'll do more of these. Stephen, we're kind of planned to do a few more of these going forward in the future, aren't we?
Yeah, well, we are definitely going to be using StreamYard now from now on. So this is going to be yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Listen, sorry I had to hard out, but I'll definitely listen back and check you all out. Thanks very much for having me. Bye.
Peace out,
Bye,
bud.
Kevin.
See you, Kevin.
So what were you saying, Dave?
Technically speaking, the monarchy still has absolute power in the UK.
So does that mean that like the Queen could literally just overturn any law that Parliament passed if she really wanted to?
The problem is, I think that she would lose power
Yeah.
the minute she tried.
Yeah.
So when you
It's
say
power, I
lose
don't
power,
think she can exercise. That's the
okay,
point.
so the power is there formally. It would just be hard to like exercise it in practice.
Yes.
Okay.
However, it's all done in terms of implementing laws. The way it's done, it's all done behind the scenes. So again, you don't know how much power she is allowed to exercise, but it is allowed. It is Parliament. I don't. As far as I've been able to ascertain, you got to trust our government. I don't think the monarchy could survive standing up to Parliament.
How long do you think that there will still be a formal monarchy in the United Kingdom? Do you think it's going to last a long time, or do you think that like within the next 100 years it might go?
I think it'll last as long as it stays shut up.
Okay. And I'm assuming that's why you think it's shut up right now, is to make it last longer.
Yeah, I think it's to maintain their
Yeah.
dynasty.
I think if it makes a nuisance of itself, it's quicker. It's more likely to get removed.
You know, yeah, that makes sense. Why the fuck I couldn't pick up on that myself? Because I'm a fucking idiot, I swear.
Is it true that if you like insult the royal family, that like it's like I don't know, that like other people will kind of shout at you, or like you'll be kind of shunned for doing that? Like, is that still a thing?
There are people who are ardent monarchists.
Yeah, you see, because like I
To
just
be honest, you get more of that in Northern Ireland than you do here.
Wow.
You see, I just don't understand. Like for the Queen's Jubilee, what was it, like her like fucking 50th or something? They held a fucking rock concert for her, and she was like 90 at this stage. Just put a fucking cornetto on a pony's head and tell her it's a fucking unicorn. Like,
But it's not
you know what I mean?
really
Like,
for
just
her.
why would you?
It's not really for her. Is the problem?
But
What
yeah,
happens? What happens if you meet royalty and then you like don't bow and you're not all formal about it? Do they just like kick you out, or do they arrest you, or like what happens?
No, they just kick you out.
Okay.
I mean, there's a good joke I used to like. You're not allowed to turn your
feel
back
like
on
this
the
on the
Queen.
way out. What's
You're
that?
not allowed to turn your back on the Queen.
Very bad manners.
I would probably
very
do it just to be like, yeah, no, fuck the monarchy.
And
I
then one
wouldn't
of
turn-
the comics
I wouldn't
ran and
turn
said,
my
I
back
don't
on
know
her.
why.
It's
Because she's
kind
not
of
allowed to make
intimidating, I
anything.
understand.
Yeah, but apparently she's very smart.
Yeah, she is. I say that like I've met her, but yeah, I mean, from everything that I've heard, yeah, she's very smart.
She's yeah. I'm not convinced Charles is.
You know what? I'm with you
Charles
there.
might be an atheist. So
Yeah, so I'm assuming the monarchy is traditionally Anglican in terms of their religion.
you say traditionally like that's
Well, what I mean is that, like, in the sense of like that's the way it's kind of always been.
no,
I don't-
not at all.
Well,
Well, it's been that way for
I
a
don't
few
know.
hundred years.
Well,
but
yeah,
the monarchy goes back longer, and then we were Catholic.
yeah.
Oh, there's books and movies and everything about this shit. It's a very complicated thing. Have you not heard of Henry VIII?
I have. Yeah, I don't know much about him.
Yeah,
You basically get the Anglican Church because he needed
because
a
of
divorce.
Henry.
He needed a divorce. Catholics weren't going to do it, and he's like, "Fuck this! I'll start my own church." I'm grossly oversimplifying things, but that's
Yes.
basically what he did, and it was brilliant. I think it's fucking. I think it's hilarious.
That sets on course the entire of European history for the next several hundred years.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, we could, but I do think we should get back onto the election because Jesus.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah,
for having
we
railed
kinda
on
took
the
a-
conversation. I
two
just
things,
curious.
right?
We
things
took a
about your-
harsh detour there. You
yeah.
know?
We need to get back to the election before we start talking about the Battle of Hastings and all. You know,
But yeah.
Magna Carta.
Our government,
You know,
our
Yep.
government has done two things in the last 2 weeks. It has repositioned itself for a Biden presidency.
okay.
So they're expecting Biden to win.
Yeah, I think everyone is.
yeah.
And they
That
are
worries
deferring
I hope
making
they're
any
right.
further Brexit decisions
Until
until
the
after
election.
the election.
I think that's a good move.
Oh man.
But don't they? I mean, what will happen though? I mean, because I mean, the problem with this is, let's say that the predictions are right, because right now it's looking like national poll average. Even if the polls, the margin of error is wrong in Trump's favor, it's still gonna be a squeaker of an election. But it still looks like it's Biden's. You know, Biden will win.
The problem is I don't trust how little it would take to hack of your election.
Actually,
Just
it's
swing-
harder. It's harder than you think. The one of the things that comes up, and this is one of the things that gets thrown back when Trump and some of his cronies talk about like this rampant corruption and with elections, things that are done in the United States are remarkably janky. It's like a wobbly wagon, and most all elections are governed at a county level. And there's
My
so many.
point is, you only have to change you because of the way the electoral college works. You only have to change you only need to change a few thousand results in the right place.
He is technically right there.
Yeah, maybe, but then if you had something like that happen, there are safeguards in place. You'd have a hell of a scandal, because then you'd have to have something like a direct hacking of the electoral college. That in and of itself would create a whole.
On that scale, I think it would be huge.
I don't
Well, I mean,
know
here's-
how likely that one would be to happen. though.
Here's the issue: like, there's over 80 million votes
Yeah.
in early voting. So
Right.
just to give an example of that, in Texas, the number of early votes a couple of days ago reached 95% of the total ballots cast in 2016. So you have a huge sway of people coming out to vote that didn't in 2016
Yep.
because
And a lot of them are younger people, especially in Texas and in Florida and in some southern states. Not that might do much, but And that's why you said, I hate to interrupt, but that's why you see recently, I think it was either yesterday or today. You might know more about when it actually was, Jeff, but it was either yesterday or today or sometime this past week. The 8th Circuit Court ruled, to at least 2 conservative justices or judges on that court ruled for Minnesota that ballots, early ballots and mail-in ballots have to be received. I think it's by 8 p.m. on election day or they won't be counted. The Wisconsin Supreme Court ruled that they have to be in by midnight or they won't be counted. There's the Republican Party of Texas in Harris County, which is overwhelmingly Democratic. What they just right now they're pushing to have 100,000 curbside ballots is what they're called. I don't really know what that means. You can expound on that if you do, Jeff, here in a second. They want them thrown out, and they're appealing to a staunchly conservative judge to do this, who's called an emergency meeting on it on Monday. This is why Republicans are doing everything they can, like Donald Trump himself, to attack mail-in voting, because they know those are going to be a majority of Democratic votes.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and Trump is an interesting character. He is confoundingly, stupidly honest, because he came out on the campaign trail and he said, you know, early voting, or when people vote, they vote Democratic. So let's make them not vote.
Yep.
He actually said that on at one of his rallies, and I was sitting there like,
he's notorious for saying the quiet part loud. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they told you that so you would know, not for you to tell the public. And so that's why you see he's trying to undermine. The whole lot of them are trying to undermine mail-in votes and early voting, because if they can undermine it, then the idea that it was stolen, and you see this as soon as the coronavirus, I think it was August, September, when the second wave started to hit, you saw Donald Trump go from "we have the election in the bag" to "mail-in votes are dangerous."
Right.
And it's interesting to see his twist. And this is the important part. And this is what, if you go through the 2016 election, he never lost faith. He had his talking points. He stuck to his talking points. It was very simple. Let's make America great again. Let's build the wall. They were his talking points. Yep. Let's reopen manufacturing. They were his talking points. This time around, since March, since February, it's been I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, and then all of a sudden it's voter fraud, voter fraud, voter fraud. Since August, September, he changed tack, which means he does not have faith in his own campaign.
No, he doesn't. And you can tell in the Republican Party, the way that Mitch McConnell has been acting, a lot of these people, they've sort of started to distance themselves from Trump. They're thinking that Biden is going to win, and they're bracing for that. But, oh, God, what the fuck was I going to say? Son of a bitch. It just slipped my mind. I fucking hate Asperger's sometimes.
There are people, even in the Democrats, or who would have traditionally voted Democrat that went Republican last time.
Yeah.
There are people, I hate to say it, who would not vote for Hillary, not just because she was a bad candidate, but because she was a woman.
Yep.
There are people
they
who
were out there. I met them.
Yeah. There are people who would not vote for her because she supported LGBT. Mm-hmm. There's people that voted for her because she's, I don't know, too liberal, or they consider her too liberal. She actually came out and said, I don't ascribe to the term liberal. I would like to be called progressive. And so she was already trying to actually undermine the idea or the label of liberal.
She it's interesting that when somebody like, despite it's unique to Hillary Clinton that she can come out for something finally, because she was slow doing it, but she comes out finally in support of LGBTQ, and it's a point against her. Like, she becomes less popular. Joe Biden runs down a hallway in the White House with a rainbow flag after the Supreme Court legalizes gay marriage, and his numbers go up even amongst Republicans. Like, I feel so bad.
I remembered what I was going to say.
She tries really hard.
Go on, Leo.
I want Dave to go first.
It's okay. I have to run away, but I want to read what it said in the chat before I go away, because it's just brilliant. The globalists and the elites are working with Bill Gates and the Clintons to develop a vaccine that will control our thoughts and whereabouts.
Sweet.
See, that's part of the problem with the Clintons. They are seen as establishment.
In the chat, I'd love to have him in here.
Trash Track, do you want to come in?
Right. Anyway, thank you very much for letting me in. I will catch you all later.
So
Take
what,
it
what, I,
easy.
what I was going to say is that this is the
Bye,
reason why
Dave.
they did everything they could to fast track Amy Coney Barrett, because what
Yeah.
they're thinking, and this is why the Republicans are trying to target mail-in voting, is so that when it looks like the Bidens won through the mail-in votes, they can all be like, oh, well, you know, the mail-in voting, there's fraud associated with that. And then it goes to the Supreme Court, and then Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Barrett and all the other ones are like, yeah, nope, we're gonna go with this narrative. Trump's the winner.
You know what I think?
And
Democrats
again-
do?
Even though he lost by like anywhere between I'd reckon 3 to 5 million votes in the popular vote, he's still the president.
What
But
Democrats
again-
do with this? Sorry, a real quick point. What Democrats should do with this kind of thing, because if that happens, Amy, she's in there. If the case goes there and they start making arguments like this is what they're going to do, the Democrats need to point out to the American public that those are not conservative ideas. Those are just those are contemporary Republican Party desires.
Oh yeah.
Conservative, if they're conservative originalists, they would understand that it took 3 months to actually get your ballots counted. If you want to go back to the days of the founding fathers, this business that, well, the election has to end at some point. Well, yeah, for the founding fathers, it really didn't end until the next guy was sworn in.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I was just going to say, Trump actually again said that on a campaign rally. He did say we need Coney Barrett in because we have something going through the courts, and we're going to need those judges. And Mitch McConnell has said, you know, the biggest issue for him over the last 4 years was to fill those seats.
I wanted to
Because
ask-
they're the ones that are going to be there for decades.
I've got a question for you and Stephen, Kayla. What do you think will happen? Let's say Biden wins. We're now in Trump's lame duck period. Do you think that the UK is going to try to kick the can down the road with negotiations about Brexit until after Biden gets in? Because there's a lot of people that are predicting Trump might get even more erratic and unpredictable in his lame duck session.
From what I know,
if
yes.
he loses, Trump is gonna go off the motherfucker.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know it. He's gonna go off the motherfucking wall.
Look what happened when he was kicked off of what was it? What was the show that he was on?
Celebrity Apprentice or whatever, The Apprentice.
The Apprentice. He went fucking batshit and then start calling I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger that filled in for him at one stage. He started calling him all the names under the sun. So yeah, expect a tantrum.
Expect just horrible pettiness. It should be. My prediction is this: if Biden wins, Trump is going to dangle the story out that he's not going to concede. It's going to happen. I think he'll do this. The Republicans will stay silent about it. They'll let him spin up that media cycle. It will lead to an hysterical. And by hysterical, I don't mean funny. Just literally everybody losing their minds for about a week until the Republicans basically walk it back. But I think they're going to do that just because, you know what? If he's only got a couple months left, let's see how badly he can wind up the libs. Because if they can't get anything real done, they'll just stick their fingers in other people's eyes.
Yeah, like I like definitely do think that like if Trump loses, and I think I'm fairly confident now saying when Trump loses that like he was asked a few times about like whether he would agree to do a peaceful transfer of power, and he hasn't given a straight answer on it yet. He hasn't said straight up yes. So like I don't know,
There's an interesting
it's difficult to kind of say and to kind of talk about because it's like a what if, or like it's a probably.
The interesting thing about it is if once the election's declared, once victory is declared, and let's say it is a Biden win, he can say that he's not going to concede as much as he wants. But the fact of the matter is, once January 20th or the 21st rolls around, he can no longer live in the White House. He is no longer a
The
resident
thing
of
is,
it.
if Donald Trump, for whatever reason, refused to leave the White House, he would be escorted out in handcuffs by the United States Marine Corps.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not as much as like.
And he won't let that embarrassment. He won't face that embarrassment. Sorry to interrupt, but he won't face that embarrassment. He's gonna go out.
Do you know when you said that, all I could think was Homer Simpson, or was it Homer Simpson? Do you want to leave peacefully, or do you want to come out kicking and screaming? And he was like, do you really have to ask that? And he gets kicked out kicking and screaming.
That happened. I happened to Ned Flanders when he checks himself into the mental ward. He's
Yeah,
like,
that's
"Oh,
what
how do
it
you,
is. That's
how do you
what
want
it
to
is.
go?" And he's like, "Ooh, kicking and screaming." He's just howling
Yeah.
on them.
That's what it was. But yeah, in terms of the debate, so I've been watching. There is, I think it's Talk About Elections, and he goes through a lot of the 538.com. So
Pretty good, yeah.
538 kind of, if you don't know what it is, it goes through all of the polls,
Yep.
brings them all together, and tries to do the math. So Talk About Elections is taking that and running with it and analyzing all the different perspectives of what could happen.
Yeah.
And if you go back to, again, if you go back to August or even before the first presidential debate, I would have said, and so some of the people that would be watching this know Team Skeptic, and Team Skeptic has this gaming channel, and we talk about politics and we talk about just random stuff. Yeah, we talk about random stuff, and we have been saying all along that Trump was going to win. Trump is going to win. And if you had said that to me, even after the first presidential debate, I would have said Trump is still going to win. But there was something, again, I think his attitude has changed, and a lot of Americans' attitudes have changed in the last couple of weeks as the second wave hit.
Yes.
And
100%.
as he got coronavirus and spread it to the West Wing and spread it throughout the
White House.
the White House for the second time, I think there's a more of an understanding now that actually, yeah, this guy doesn't represent our interests. And I say that on the Republican side, the moderate Republican side, not in positions of power, but with the voters. And they're starting to say, I want a more traditional conservative politician. And if we get rid of him, then it'll actually line up for the next. Now, here's a question for you. Do you think in 4 years he will be stupid enough to try and go again?
No, because he will either be in jail or he will be living in another country that doesn't have extradition laws.
He will be trying to shill for programming with right-wing media to do anything like that. I think the problem is going to be his instincts have always been bad, and he's always been just legendarily lazy. And now he's older, so the issue is going to be who's going to take on that babysitting job. Because even Fox News at some point is going to have to reckon with the fact that his brand, by the time he's done, is not going to. I mean, he even said it himself. He said it at one of his rallies. If I lose to Biden, I'm losing to the worst politician ever. That's the kind of stakes he just put himself in. It's like, okay, I'm going to remember that you said that. The only problem is a lot of Republicans are going to remember that he said that, and Republicans are notoriously cruel. So, and I know I used to be one. They do not like weakness, the appearance of it, even just a whiff of it. They will probably lose him. They will try to flush him down the memory hole, and they will look for someone worse. They will look for someone more extreme than him in terms of views.
The thing is, if and when Donald Trump loses the election, is out of office, if it's a Democratic trifecta, if he doesn't move to a country that would refuse to extradite him, he is fucked. He's not going to be a free man for very long, unless his lawyers can hold everything up in the courts. Because if it's Democratic House, Democratic Senate, and Democratic presidency, his only hope is the Supreme Court.
But also, I mean, a lot of those judges, even at the district and circuit court judges, he appointed. So he's hoping that he can get in favors institutionally. Yeah,
but and the thing is, the fact that he loses, if he loses, I think that the Republicans and the conservatives are going to try to distance themselves from him. They're going to be like, yeah, I can't do this.
Yeah.
But
Here's the flip side.
I do
Here's
have
the flip
another
side.
stream that I need to hop into, so I've been very, very grateful for the 2 hours that I've been here. I'm going to hop off into Rage's stream for an hour before Saturday Night at the Atheist starts because he asked me to come in. So thanks for having me, Stephen. I hate that no conservatives had the balls to come in and own us libtards. You know,
Yeah.
It was nice meeting you, Keila. Good talking with you, and obviously Jeff.
You too, Leo.
It was great having you come in. You guys take it easy.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Cheers, Leo.
Yeah. By the way, I apologize for showing up late. I forgot
No,
the
no,
name of your new channel. I forgot it was Cider and Port.
Yeah.
So thanks for posting that link. I was like, yeah, I'm late, and I was attempting to help out family members that were trying to do a COVID safe candy dispensing thing for the local morons. It's not COVID safe, so I got the hell out of there. I'm like, my idea was like, treat your front porch, wall off your front porch, treat it like a parade float, huck candy at the the idiots that come by, and then jump inside, turn off the lights, and lock the doors. That's not what they're doing. So it's like, fortunately, they've got some PPE, but it's not enough. This is the kind of stuff that kind of concerns me, because in communities like this, I don't see enough of this stuff happening. The one interesting thing was, kid wanted to walk by and come up and get some candy. My folks have a Biden sign in their yard, and the dad told him, no, not this house, and they walked on.
Has nobody tried to run your sign over?
No, they haven't had that problem yet. I did hear about some people in this town that did.
Jeez.
So yeah, they'll tear down the flags, as they'll replace them with a Trump flag or something like that. Yeah.
Throw candy from a window hard. Yeah, it's like trying to get it into the bag.
Or just shoot it at the kid, or shoot it at their parents, That's what I was trying to figure out. Is there a way that
Get a slingshot.
just a candy trebuchet, just lob it into the center of the street, maybe dent some cars as they go by,
or like one of those like t-shirt cannons, just like a shit ton of candy in them, just you know what I mean?
Yeah, imagine shooting a Tootsie Roll the size of that t-shirt. You just put a hole through a crowd of people. Just
yeah. There's just some poor guy just cycling by. You just clap him. He just
tears his bike in half. Like, I got to turn down the pressure on this thing, and I need to stop using the giant Tootsie Rolls. Unless you end up filling up some giant shotgun shell that just blasts candy all over the place, that'd be kind of interesting. I've got to get into some engineering. I got some patents I got to secure. Candy cannon. So if you guys have any of your when do you? For the most part, that the Irish political setup is kind of similar to the UK, right? You guys have a parliamentary style system, lots of different parties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And usually, like when Keila had mentioned something about like a by-election, somebody passes away, leaves, retires, whatever. Is it usually like the political parties themselves? They usually like kind of nominate a candidate to go into that.
Yeah, it's basically like a general election or a local election. You'd put a candidate up, but usually most by-elections would coalesce with either European elections or with locals.
Okay, so they basically put it on the calendar for the next stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what would usually happen is someone is nominated from the party to take that seat until the election. And then you'd have a by-election. So if there was someone, so we have our national parliament and we have local councils. So if someone from the national parliament or if someone, an MEP, was to pass away or retire, or would have to retire before the next election, what would happen is the party would put someone else in until the election, and it would be a special election called a by-election.
Gotcha. Do they let the person that they put in there temporarily run for that?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
It's the proper election protocols. So anyone is eligible to put their names up. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wondered about that. So yeah, it was interesting that the last time I talked with Stephen, it was kind of the first time that I've been on one of his things. The interests that Ireland has with U.S. politics. So I've never traveled over to that side of the world. I've never been to the UK or Europe, but I spent some time in Asia, and their interest in American politics is a little different. So I know in South Korea, they seem to be pretty interested in it. Japan, not so much. At least back when I was there, but that was in the early aughts. So.
Oh no! Well, Ireland has always had a special relationship with America, anyway.
Yeah.
So, in terms of trade relations, our big thing, well, for us, it would be not allowing American meat into Ireland. But there's like butter. Butter is a big thing. Irish butter goes over to that. I think that's one of our biggest exports to the US.
I'm a fan myself. I'm actually something of an Irish butter evangelist. I try to tell people like, and as a Midwestern guy, when I was growing up in the, I was a little kid in the 80s. Margarine was basically like the healthy choice. When I realized, wait, I don't have to eat that crap because I'm growing up now. The difference between margarine and butter, that's the difference between butter and Irish butter. Like you can go up a tier. So
the only thing I was in the States there a while ago, and I liked the potato bread. I am stereotypical Irish when it comes to what I eat.
Potato bread can be good. I got super tired of it. I mean, like the grocery store sliced bread in general is not a thing that I like. I'm very picky about it. So I'm looking forward to one day going to France just to eat their bread, just to see what I've been missing out on.
Yeah.
So here's a quick question. What do you perceive the next 4 years to be if Trump did pull it out of the bag?
I think there's going to be a kind of a tailspin of just insanity. I mean, I think the Republicans already got out of the one term what they really wanted to get, which was a lot of court appointments. After he's done as much as he can to juke the economy with the tax cut. The only thing he could do would be to try to do a tax cut that was more focused on kind of ginning up demand, the lower, amongst the working poor and the middle class. But Republicans tend to be resistant to those kinds of tax cuts, so they're not going to look at doing it. I think
isn't he rolling back on EPA regulations for Alaska now?
Yeah, and that's actually the worst thing. I think probably another 4 years of them would lead to a lot more deregulation, especially in environmental stuff that we would not be able to walk off. The only thing that would my concern would be with another 4 years is that he could end up making decisions about deregulating things in the environment that are so bad that it might actually end up risking international intervention. Like, I don't know that I would entirely be against it if they got really good and crazy. I don't think that voting will be the same if another 4 years happens. I think they're going to, with this election as being as close as it is, and Republicans being as vulnerable to the democratic process as it stands, I think other than deregulation, they're going to try to chip away. And they've already done this with the accusations of corruption and all this other kind of stuff, voter fraud and all that. They're gonna double down on that. So,
yeah, I think that like if it's not like pretty clear that Biden has won on the night, I think that Trump is going to do absolutely everything that he possibly can to try and stop the mail-in ballots from being counted or from still being collected. Because, like, if it seems on the night that he's won, first off, he's going to call it. And secondly, like, if it turns out, well, no, that actually Joe won, he's going to say that it was rigged, and he's going to put off the process, all that sort of, like, he's just going to cause a massive fuss.
Yeah. I don't know if he's going to be able to do legally what, like say the Gore, Gore v. Bush kind of thing. I don't know if he's going to have the same avenues there.
I don't think he will. But the other thing, I think it was you that said, if he loses and he's not in the ticket, the Republicans will go even more extreme. I can't see that happening because, I mean, you look back at Nixon and you look back at some of the Republicans that have been more, I wouldn't say extreme, but they would be more on the kind of right-wing tail of the Republicans. They always come back with a more centrist one after that, it would seem. I don't see them going, I can't imagine them going even further right.
Well, it won't. The problem will be, they will go further to the right because it's the only direction that they can go, but they will get someone that can do it discreetly. That's what I think they would end up looking for, because at this point, other than, they have a dwindling demographic with evangelical Christians, and even amongst some Christians, some of the stuff isn't working out that great. And then, the largest generational cohort that's coming up is, millennials and the Gen Z types, and almost all of them are tracking in terms of opinions. They're very, very much further to the left politically than any other generation we've had before. So I think Republicans see the writing on the wall. The only thing that they can kind of continue to dabble in is going to be reactionary politics, the kind of Proud Boys stuff and things like that. So they're going to need a real talent, I think. But I don't know if they're going to be able to pull off the same populist loudmouth act a second time.
No, I don't think so. I don't think there's another candidate that can actually do what Trump does.
I mean, they threw all of their talent at the primary back in 2016.
And that was embarrassing.
And Republicans all laughed themselves hysterical watching this guy eat their lunch and insult them, and sometimes kind of vaguely threaten them. And it was just weird to watch. That it was like watching this party just sort of cannibalize itself, and then you realize, oh wait, that's not a glitch; it's a feature, right? What came out of that entire process was a new Republican Party, whether they were willing to change their platform or not, that basically is personified by Trump. And if he loses, if that does happen, one of the things that the press will talk about is whether or not there's going to be a reconfiguration amongst the Republican Party. Generally, though, most of the stuff that backs them has been based in a 50, 60-year tradition of right-wing media, going all the way back to like the National Review and junk like that. So they don't have a lot of wiggle room here.
I think that's one thing that actually disturbed me going back to the debates. The first debate, when Biden was talking, he said, I am the Democratic Party right now. I mean,
yeah.
Is it a situation? For me, I have a problem with that. Is it a situation? Because although I've been following American politics for a while now, the structure of the parties is something that kind of eludes me at the top, because there is a centralized organization.
Yeah.
But it seems that the leader of the parliamentary party, as in who is on the ballot for president, becomes the figurehead for the party.
Yeah.
And they are the party. That seems to me to be a very dangerous position, especially for the Democrats to actually be promoting.
Yeah, I think it's become a trend with them. The
when
weird
it comes
thing
to Trump,
is
because everything.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
There's a module. It's almost like it's supposed to be a modular system, right? Like, I mean, there's the party first, and then you have an individual you have these candidates. No one would say that just because Pelosi is, Speaker of the House, that she's somehow the head of the party. Like there's nothing like this. The idea of that kind of figurehead idea that's happening, I think it's happened for two reasons. One is because Republicans have sort of acted as if that's the case amongst their own party, unless their guy falls out of favor. And then it's like, where did that guy go? Then the Republican Party is they're the party of liberty. They become the party of ideas unless they have a popular president. And like currently now, they are the party of Trump. I think it's weird that the Democrats are trying to follow along with that kind of thing, because Biden doesn't have a lot of time. And I don't mean that just because he's very old, but him, Schumer, and Pelosi are not going to be around for very long. And the new guard that's coming up on them, like AOC and Ilhan and all these other people that are coming up and gaining a lot of support and gaining a lot of notoriety, they're going to take the party in a very leftward direction generally, but I think they're also going to take it in a very different direction tactically. And my concern is that Biden may be a little too beholden to the old ways and the old ideas to really get that.
Yeah. Because it's similar here. In Ireland, we have the parliamentary party, and whoever is elected to the head of the parliamentary party is the leader of the party. So the leader of the parliamentary party is the leader of the party.
Yeah.
Whereas we have other groups where the leader of the parliamentary party is only the leader of the parliamentary party, and they bring it back to a group, a centralized organization outside of the parliamentary party, a broader kind of church, so to speak. But I do find it very, very odd. I do find it very worrying that he came out with that.
Yeah, and I think that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why Sanders, one of the things that they were very, very clear about in the 2016 primaries and in the primaries this time, it was very clear that they are not, for them, when they throw around the idea of the head of the party, they really do mean it ideologically. And so if you have somebody who's a centrist like Joe Biden, the majority of the Democratic Party as an institution wants that ideology to be front and center. If Sanders had won, they wouldn't know what to do with themselves, because I think they still would try to hold themselves to that standard. Bernie Sanders is now the head of the Democratic Party. Oh shit, what does that mean for us? Like, it's a massive identity change. It didn't surprise me to hear him say that, but because they internally they were doing that quite a bit whenever they would have discussions about Sanders. They'll do it again when AOC runs for president, and she will. So
yeah, there's a really interesting question there from Sammy. Do you agree the left gets dragged right every election to the point where the right is right and the left is center?
In America, that's actually been the case. I mean, because Biden is basically not that much further to the left of Reagan. And one of the things that I get yelled at when I have political discussions with some of the fundamentalist evangelists who tend to be also very conservative politically, if we get into the topic, I'm like, look, one of the biggest problems I had with Barack Obama is that he's too conservative, and ideologically, Hillary Clinton is even further to the right. They laugh. They don't understand it, because it's like they drink this Kool-Aid about and it always happens when one of them comes into power. They might be willing to have a discussion about where these people are specifically ideologically when they're not in a position of power. As soon as they're in a position of power, though, they just assume that they're going to turn into the second coming of Stalin.
Yeah, I mean, coming back to the presidential debates, you could see it was very interesting when Trump was saying, he's been in politics for 47 years and he's done nothing. The one way, and I was waiting for him to shut that down, the reason why he didn't get or Obama, because they were talking about the Obama Biden years. One of the reasons why they didn't get as much through that they wanted to get through was because the Republicans blocked them at every fucking turn.
Right, but that's where they hit. That's the right punch, and then the left punch is you come back with, well, here's the thing: the Republicans and Mitch McConnell obstructed everything we tried to do. So they come in and counter with, you've just admitted that you're incompetent and useless.
Yeah,
that's how they spin that.
Yeah, true. Or you just say, the system is fucked.
Yep. And it's
but they're not going to do that.
Yeah. Well, if you're complaining about a rigged system, it's because it was your system. You were in charge. You fucked it.
Yeah.
So don't come crying to me that you couldn't get anything done. Your job was, and at that point, when they do that, they're absolutely right. And this is why I think that, especially in conservative politics in the United States, they hate this. They hate the sign of weakness. So never give it to them. And if Democrats get into this, they have to wield power, and they have to, most importantly, this, I cannot emphasize this enough, they have to kick them in the dick. As often as they can. If they see an opening, kick that dick. Kick it until it falls off, because that's what a Republican would do to them. If you spot a weakness, you open it as wide as you can, and then you start dumping lemon juice and salt into it.
I suppose here's the problem that I see, and it's ingrained in all politics. When you're talking about center, left, right, the right wing, there's two types of right wing. There is the economic right wing and there's the social right wing.
Right.
So you have the economic right wing that wants deregulation. You have the social right wing who wants segregation. And it's all designed on privilege. Right wing, the only thing that they agree on is privilege. Privilege to me. I am the voter. I am the consumer. I want my privilege. And that's what they agree on. When it comes to the center and the left, when you're voting, there are a ton of reasons that you're voting for, both social and economic, and they're all coming at it from different perspectives, whether it be from a traditional left wing, a far left wing, a center right. They're coming at it. There's many different reasons why the working class and the lower middle class vote or don't vote for whatever reason. So when you're in like something like the Democratic Party, you have to try and bring all of those very different, sometimes opposing, sometimes, sensitive issues. You have to try and bridge that gap and bring them together. So you're not going to get the same absolutist votism that you get on the right. The right only wants privilege. And that's what the Republican Party traditionally will offer. We will deregulate, we will segregate, we will protect your neighborhoods, from the riffraff.
Right.
This kind of ideology. Whereas the center and the center left and the left, there's so many different reasons that they have to bridge, and some of them are contradicting and some of them are against each other. So that's when the question is asked, are the center pulled, or is the left pulled to the center? Sometimes, as we've seen with the UK, they're pulled even further left than they wish to be, or that the hardcore of the party. And then you have the rifts. Then you see the likes of the factions coming out and literally going at each other in the press every day. Well, so that's just one thing to think about, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there. I think that the biggest issue that happens for the Democrats, the reason they have a problem with this is because, and there's some good books out on this, the conservative movement, roughly starting in like this, I mean, it really kind of started right around the same time the NRA lost its mind in 1977, ideologically started shifting, and they started investing a lot of money in think tanks, magazines, publications like this. And a lot of them were built around the ideological views coming out of the University of Chicago School of Economics, Milton Friedman, and using that as a backstop. What they ended up developing over a few decades was a narrative that they could sell to American people that I think speaks to the sense of privilege that a lot of conservative voters have. The problem with anyone within the Democratic Party is they didn't have an economic narrative that they could spin. Their economic narrative was, and most Democrats themselves, economically, they're capitalists. Yeah. So they allowed conservative politics to frame this issue, the big one about economics and the country's prosperity, in their own terms, and then tried to box inside that tight circle, and then couldn't figure out why they were losing people on those on that particular issue. With the people that are coming into the party now, specifically people like Bernie Sanders, economic advisor for at least his first primary campaign in 2016. I don't know if she was involved in 2020 with Stephanie Kelton. And she is a professor of economics at the University of Missouri. I think she works at a different school now. But she's one of these people that's into modern monetary theory. And she would go out and teach this kind of stuff. And it was a very different, and fans of this are people like AOC. And I think Ilhan Omar is also a fan of it. You have with that, and it's been weird, the Democratic Party's stalwarts have been really resistant to a lot of these newcomers coming in and talking about deficits the way MMTers talk about it. And the odd thing about that is like, you guys finally have an economic narrative that you can make your own. You can use this economic narrative and put this out there, and you have a counterexample, for the first time in decades, a real counterexample to the monopoly that conservative politics has had. And they're not jumping at it. And it drives me crazy that they're not.
They're not jumping at it because a lot of the establishment politicians believe we know what works, we know what is safe, and they will always default to that safe position.
Yeah, and it just seems to me that it's not as safe as they think.
No, but they don't really want to risk, and that's the issue. They don't want to risk their base, but they already risked their base and they lost because of it, big time in 2016.
Yeah, they've been blinkered about a lot of things for quite a while, and in this case, I mean, given the stuff that's going on with Trump, anybody running against him should not be polling as well as he is. And what it tells me is that and I don't know if this is because of his influence or if it's just been the direction that America's been going kind of culturally. There is a significant number of people in this country. People accuse Hillary of referring to them as the deplorables. But there's a large group of people in this country that do not have good ethics. It's demonstrable that they demonstrate a lot of poor critical reasoning, but they are not ethical. And this is a good example of it. This guy, Trump, he will go up there and talk about self-centered, selfish things, and they love it and they relate to it. And they're voting for somebody that they think mirrors themselves. And that to me is the most disappointing thing about it. It's like if the Republican Party has become the party of Trump, it's become the party of self-centered, entitled, egotistical, willfully ignorant bullshit
and individualism, and that's this is the individualism has to be spoken about here, because if you look at 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when you look at GM the first time around in the 50s, 60s, when that came into trouble the first time, you had collective organizations, you had people coming out on strike, or you had people willing to actually stick their necks out for the community. Right. What has happened, and it's not just in the US, you have seen just the gutting of the term community. Anything believed to be collective is bad, and anything individualistic is good. And there's this reprogramming that has happened under neoliberalism, that has created a situation where my voice and my feeling and my entitlement is the only thing that's important. And I'm part of the debunking community. We see what we call Karens all the time, where they don't want to wear masks, or they want their entitlement is breached, and therefore they want to see the manager and scream to high heavens that they're being discriminated against for the most stupid of things. So it's that individualism that has become front and center, and that has led to Donald Trump becoming president. That is a huge issue, because the collective is now dangerous, and anyone that would have relied on that collectivism, it was gutted under the Democrats just as much as under the Republicans. For instance, do you know what the last presidential order that Bill Clinton signed in was? In his administration, what was the last thing he signed?
His last one? I don't remember.
It was the repeal of the Glass-Steagall Act of the 1930s.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So anyone that doesn't know what the Glass-Steagall Act was, it was preventing financial houses from merging. So this, in 2008, you heard the phrase "too big to fail." And so the Glass-Steagall Act came in after the Great Depression of the 1920s, 1930s to prevent this from happening again. And it worked. For 80 fucking years, it worked. And then all of a sudden, the last act of his administration was to get rid of the Glass-Steagall Act. That was the Democrats. That was not the Republicans. That was the Democrats.
The interesting thing
was Clinton.
Well, he ended up getting talked into, like, very early on in his election. In his first term, he'd made promises about programs and stuff he was going to do. And Larry Summers very quickly took him to pulled him aside and told him, like, that he's going to have to be careful about what he decides the government's going to spend, because these bond vigilantes are going to run wild and yank the floor out from underneath the economy. Yep. The interesting thing is that with a lot of the deficit spending that's had to happen because the financial markets blew a hole the size of Manhattan into the economy and just vacuumed up a bunch of wealth, and now a pandemic, and all the other financial problems that happened during the 8 years of George W. Bush, that is a bluff, and people now, at least a lot of policy people, realize that. But in the 90s, that was the prevailing wisdom, and Clinton fell for it.
Yeah,
there were people that could have told him otherwise, but those people weren't in positions of influence.
I'm just going to say this, and then I'm going to head to bed. But the last thing I do want to say is it comes back to the point that Leo was talking about, of banning political parties, and alongside obviously other things. The issue that I have, one of the biggest issues, is that collectivism. Again, you take out collectivism, you take out an understanding, a social understanding that we have a responsibility towards each other. And when you have a situation where individualism is the school of thought of the day, what tends to happen is that individual will go into politics for themselves, not for the collective good.
Right.
Now, you also there is a discussion about why people go into politics, and that's a whole nother story. And I could take up another 2.5 hours talking about that. But the deal with the parties, again, it's this idea of too big to fail. That the only option that you have in the US is the Democrats, or realistically, the Democrats or the Republicans. In Northern Ireland, which is a much smaller scale, for years and years and years, when you went into the Parliament in Stormont, you had to declare yourself either orange or green. In the last 10 years, there has been a fundamental shift in the north of Ireland towards economic solutions instead of social solutions. So instead of looking at voting orange or green, people are voting for parties who don't go along those lines, who are running in both areas, both nationalist and loyalist areas. And what I would say is, instead of having conglomerating into the larger parties, create your own. You know, if you have 20 people in Maine who want to get involved in local politics, do it. Absolutely do it. So instead of having the larger parties where realistically, because the larger parties are not going to go away. They're not going to go away. They tried it in other countries. It didn't work. It didn't happen. So instead of that, you need more parties, and from the grassroots, actually, whether left-wing, right-wing, centrist, coming up from the ground and saying, this is what we need for our community, and doing it at a local level to go to the national level. And only by getting enough people in those smaller organizations can you actually have a real roll-on effect on the larger parties. We've seen it here in Ireland. We've seen it in the north of Ireland. We've seen it in Scotland. We've seen it in France. We've seen it in where else?
Isn't it currently happening in Spain? Isn't that Podemos?
In Spain and in Catalonia.
Yeah.
Where people are joining small little organizations of their community and becoming voices for their community. And when you're a voice for your community, take co-ops, for example. If everyone is being paid the same, now I'm not, this is, again, economics, but if everyone is being paid the same, instead of one being paid this and the higher up being paid 20 times as much as the one on the bottom, if you're all being paid the same, your interests are the same. So if you are all coming from the same group or from the same thought where it's collective, we need to do things based on the collective instead of individualism, there is a fundamental shift in how you go about politics. So it's not that, for me personally, banning political parties would be, one, unworkable, and two, dangerous, for the many reasons that I pointed out. So I do want to leave you with that. So thank you for having me on. And it was great because I have been listening to the other ones. And thank you to MathPig for putting me onto this channel. So good night, guys.
Thank you to MathPig.
Good night. Yeah, nice meeting you. And then there were two.
Yeah, there was. I do just kind of want to finish out. I can only imagine that Keela is also, well, she's still living in Ireland. I can only imagine. It's 1:30 in the morning here, so, and I have been drinking since 10 o'clock. So I'm a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A little bit, so I'm not going to end it now, but just kind of finish off the last kind of few points. I just want to just kind of run through a few that I had on the second presidential debate. Biden absolutely fucking hammered Trump on COVID, and it worked brilliantly. Biden's best line of, we're learning to die from it, or like with it, or whatever, that was his best line of the night. Now, it was full of fucking platitudes, and he was obviously pandering to people, but it worked. Like, it worked. Like, it seriously hit home. Yeah, it just really worked. Trump kept saying that Biden has been in politics for 47 years and he hadn't got anything done. But I mean, there's limits to what a senator can do. Yes, you can introduce bills and stuff like that, but that doesn't mean that they're going to get passed through the House and then into this. The point is that the process is there and it has to go through the process in order so that you can be credited with actually getting something done. Now, do I wish that some of the things that Biden actually did get done, he didn't, such as the crime bill, just for example? Yeah, of course. But, it's just I don't know. It's it was a cheap shot, I guess, at best.
Yeah.
Trump has done both of these debates as if he hasn't been the president for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
He's
going
out and
it's been weird, right? Because he's kind of done both, right? Like he's the best president ever.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I haven't done anything like that, or we haven't gotten around to this yet, or something. Yeah, it's like, COVID, we're rounding the corner on COVID, but then you have the White House release a thing saying pandemic over. Yeah, we did that. We ended the pandemic. Like, I mean, in terms of just sticking your head in the sand and ignoring it, if that's what you mean by ending, sure, you definitely did that. But
yeah, definitely. It's he's saying, that no other president in history has done as much as I have in the first 4 years and all this stuff. But then as soon as somebody brings up something that he has done or that he hasn't done, he's like, it's just immediate, instant deflection. And it's like, he's the greatest, but he's not going to listen to you if you start criticizing him because he doesn't like that.
Right. And I like what he does with the healthcare thing, because when Biden would push him on that, you've had 4 years, where's this plan? And then you can hear it in Trump when Trump goes, "Oh, we have a plan," and where is it? "Oh, we have so many plans." Okay, now he's bullshitting because it went from one plan to all the plans. He's out of his mind.
Yeah. But it was one of Biden's kind of underrated lines, I think, where when Trump said that he was still under audit and that's why he hasn't brought out his tax returns.
Yeah.
And Biden said, "You said that 4 years ago." I haven't heard many people talking about that line. And that was fucking brilliant.
That's it. Are we still in 2016?
Well, yeah, because he did say that. He said that when he was running against Hillary, that he was under audit and he's going to be releasing him very, very soon. It's been 4 years. Yeah. You cannot be under audit still. You just can't.
And the thing is, how many times has someone from the IRS come out and been like, "Yeah, he can release those even if he is under audit"? And by the way, he's not under audit.
Well, yeah, no, obviously he's just using that as a cover story, but
but it's so transparently bad. It amazes me that people actually will rush to his defense. Dude, he's clearly lying to you, and and he's not even doing you the service of telling you a good lie.
Yeah, but it's just he did mention this in the debate, but it's kind of a wider context of when he said that, that the IRS doesn't like him and that they're treating him very harshly or whatever, right? It kind of gets to the wider point of Trump says, he says that, and he says, that the, mainstream media, the fake news media doesn't treat him very nicely and they don't really like him and everything else like this. And he does all of this bitching and moaning and complaining.
Yeah.
Yes, the vast majority of his supporters somehow think he's an alpha male, and I just don't understand that. I don't understand how you can put the two and two together.
Again, I think the only reason they do is because the rhetoric that he has is this sort of self-centered, stupid, like, oh yeah, he means what he says what he means. Like, no, he can't actually mean everything that he says, because, well, I mean, he could mean them if he's completely divorced from reality, which should be concerning. But a lot of the stuff that he's telling you, it can't actually be the case, because it's not the case. What he's telling you is fantasy. So he's either trying to get you to believe it, and he knows it's bullshit, or he literally believes it, which is horrible and terrifying.
Yeah.
But hey, we'll see what Americans do on Tuesday. Hopefully, I mean, given the amount of turnout, the amount of voting that, I mean, because Keela mentioned it too, like the amount of early votes that have already gone through. I mean, it's already huge, and turnout
already surpassed like the actual like on the day voting of 2016, and what was it, Texas? I think I saw today.
Yeah,
that's the like early vote is more than what. Yeah, so like that. Yeah, it's insane.
And I can't remember where I saw it, but somebody had a chart breaking down like the number of young people that had voted, and they had them kind of broken down back in 2016, and then I think again in 2018 even, when they ticked up a little bit, and that's when the Democrats got the House back. But when they showed that, it was something like in some cases 3 to 4 times, depending on the demographic group, 3 to 4 times have already voted, then completely voted in 2016. And there's still more to come. And a lot of those particular groups probably will go and vote in person, because they're younger and ostensibly they're healthy enough to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be an interesting election to watch.
Yeah, it's just like I still can't like fully talk about the election and still not get ridiculously disheartened about the fact that it's not Bernie running against him, because it was just like, it was something that Trump said in the first debate, actually, that, I mean, credit to him, broken clock and all that. If Warren had dropped out at the same time that Cory Booker, Harris, and there was a few others, if Warren had dropped out at the same time as that, Bernie may have actually been the nominee, because Warren and Bernie had the kind of younger, more left vote split. But because all of the kind of more centrist candidates dropped out and all of their votes went to Biden, because it was being split between Bernie and Warren, like there's a good possibility that had she have dropped out at the same time on Bloody Monday, that like
it
could have been different.
The biggest problem the Sanders campaign had this time, it was a huge campaign the first time. He conceded, his campaign conceded the Southeast to Hillary Clinton, because they cynically kind of calculated that Democrats in the Southeast are largely going to vote for Hillary Clinton because Bill Clinton is still very popular with Black voters. And so they just figured, just because it's her, it's the name. She was polling ahead of any of the other primary candidates. And so there was actually a really good article, and it was on a couple of guys that came from a couple of HBCUs. Those are the historically Black colleges. And I think one was out of Spelman, and the other one was, I can't remember what school the other guy was going to. They were friends, and they were communicating back and forth, and they were trying to create a network of Bernie Sanders supporters within these HBCUs down south. And they had contacted the Sanders campaign, and the guy that was running the Sanders campaign, who I'm blanking on his name, but he is not particularly good. He's never run a successful campaign. In fact, I think he actually worked for Romney's campaign at one point. He basically blew them off. And it was like, okay, you had dialed in, responsive young people at HBCUs in the Southeast that were willing to create a network of volunteers to get the vote out for Bernie, and you just whiffed on that. They just let it go.
Yeah.
And they ended up pissing them off. And so everything just ground to a halt. And so they had interviewed this particular article. It had interviewed these two guys, and they went on and on about, yeah, they were really disappointed to see that. They really didn't understand what the campaign was doing, and it just seemed kind of odd. And they were like, yeah, it just seems like really cynical, inside baseball kind of stuff that his campaign's trying to do. And I don't, it doesn't seem like it's going to work. And it didn't. And I think that actually affected him in 2020 because I think he was actually polling worse in amongst Black Democrats in the Southeast than he was in 2016. So that was not a good move. I think that he would have done better if Warren had left earlier, but I don't think he would have. I think the campaign would have gotten nervous because Biden still would have picked up those southeastern states, and I think they still would have conceded. So I think the DNC would have forced them to, because they would have talked the campaign into like winding it down. So that's what it is.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was just like, I backed Bernie in 2016, and as soon as he announced that he was running for this election, I don't know. I don't know whether to like cry or come in my pants, and I think I did both. And it was just like, I just got so excited, and for all of the debates, like he was just like, he was throwing haymakers the whole time, and it just looked so good. The only reason that I say that like it would have helped Bernie massively had Warren have dropped out, because there is no other candidate in the history of the US who was won the first 4 states and then dropped out.
Yeah,
that's never happened.
Yeah.
So, like, all of the signs were there that like Bernie is going to run away with this. Like, he's going to run with it. And it was like, I don't know. It was just the disappointment on the day that I woke up to the news that he had dropped out officially. It was just.
Oh, I hear you. I was disappointed too, because I knew it was going to be his last. His last, shot to take.
Yeah.
There were some guys that I was listening to on. I can't remember what the show was. I can't remember if it was like Chapo Trap House or I think actually they kind of mimicked something like this. But there's another show called The Hill. That's Rising. Crystal.
Yeah.
Crystal
Rising.
Ball.
Yeah. Crystal and Soccer. Yeah.
Yeah. And they were talking about like this around about that time. It was shortly afterward. Their kind of analysis of it, which I don't entirely agree with, but I thought it was an interesting take. Was that Obama got involved at this particular point because for him it was sort of like, it's kind of a cynical way of using his own legacy and through having Biden having been his vice president, to sort of use that as a Democrat Party repudiation of the Trump the Trump regime, rather than having the party have to change itself with Bernie Sanders, and now it's populist versus populist, and and really I think if you do that, if you stack a right-wing populist with a left-wing populist, especially one that offers people stuff, left-wing populist is probably going to run away with it. And it seemed like amongst a lot of the talks going on behind the scenes, this is the part that I believe Obama didn't, and many other kind of established Democrats did not want to see that happen. They wanted to see something more in line with, the Obama administration, that reputation, that style of politics, that beating Trump, rather than populist left-wing stuff being the thing that beat Trump. And I think in some way that's true, because I think if they couldn't repudiate Trump, and they may not, if Trump wins, then it really is an indictment against the entire thing that they're trying to do. The only way that I think if Biden's winning, it's because of this pandemic and because Trump is so monumentally fucked up with it. I think that might be the only reason that Biden might get in there.
Yeah.
They're going to be in a very difficult situation after 4 years running someone else. Now, if something dramatic happens and Biden happens to pass away during his first term and it goes over to Kamala Harris, she might be popular politically enough to win that second term and kind of carry things on. Hopefully that doesn't happen to Biden, but I mean, he's up there. It could happen.
Yeah.
She's actually, and people have made that calculation. She's actually in a position where she could end up taking over the presidency.
Yeah. There's been talks behind the scenes, and she hasn't actually outright denied this yet. In fact, she's kind of placating to the rumors. There is a possibility that Nina Turner is going to run for president in 2024. And if she does, I'm saying this now, a week before the election in 2020, she has my endorsement. I fucking love Nina Turner. Holy God. When I talked earlier about the Democrats needing an attack dog, that's Nina Turner.
Yeah,
that's Nina Turner. She will go in there. Like I will be honestly shocked if this happens and she gets to the primaries when she's going up against other people. I will be genuinely shocked if she doesn't turn on the debate stage and be like, "Bitch, please, what the fuck are you talking about?" That sort of like just yeah. I'm sorry. I absolutely love Nina Turner. She's just brilliant.
Yeah, that could be that would be interesting. The other person too is AOC is eligible to run in 2024.
I don't think that she's going to run yet. I think that she's going to put it off until the 2030s.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't really.
You think she'd angle
really have like? Yeah, but you see, AOC did an interview recently with Vanity Fair, which caused a bit of a stir on the old Fox News network.
She got to keep those clothes. That's why she's corrupt. They paid her
yeah. Apparently, nobody at Fox News knows how a fucking photo shoot works. Anyway, she had said in that like she doesn't really kind of like the whole idea of being a career politician and kind of doing that as your job, like for life. That like there are certain things that like she wants to do in politics, but she doesn't ultimately see herself being in politics for her entire life. So like keeping with that, I think that she might run for Senate. Maybe I think that she's going to try and get in on like a few like inner circles that are working on very specific issues, like ones that like she is for. But after that, I think that she's going to run for president. If she gets president, I think that will be the end of her career in politics.
It could be. Yeah. I wonder what that does kind of make me curious as to what she would angle for. Because I think I think with enough experience going forward, she would have a pretty good shot at taking over. The only problem is with politics nowadays that the news cycles are so fast. It's like Elizabeth Warren could have beaten Hillary Clinton in 2016. She could have gotten an nomination. That was her moment.
She should have.
And that would have been her election to lose. But yeah, now it was clear that it was past. There's a guy that I used to follow. He writes for Vanity Fair actually. Charlie Booker, I think. Not Booker. Mm-hmm. Try to remember his name. Old kind of crazy white guy. He called that dead on. He was like, hey, I like Warren, and I think that I think she's giving it her best in the 2020 primary, but or the 20 during the 2016 primary. But he's just like what was it? I'm fucking up my dates. He's like, but basically, like her time had passed. Like you should have run against Hillary. And trying to do it now, it's too late. The moment's kind of passed. I kind of wonder if something like that could happen to somebody like AOC too. Where it's like, she was, she was really spot on with some of the stuff and very relevant. And then
I don't know, because I think that her popularity is only kind of, I don't know so much that it's like increasing to the level that like it was at the start when she first entered politics. Of course, I mean, it wouldn't be, because she like went from virtually almost nobody knowing who she was to basically the entire country knowing who she was almost overnight. But I mean, like some of the things that she is doing and the fact that she is using her youth to her advantage, like that stream that she did on Twitch playing Among Us with like several other streamers, that was her first stream. That's just first off. It instantly went into the top 3 most viewed streams ever on Twitch.
Wow.
And it's just like that's like, but like her ability to be able to use that and to be able to use the kind of the like Instagram stories and the Snapchat stories and all of this, like the fact that she's using these things to her advantage and to be able to kind of speak almost directly to people. Yes, you have Twitter for that and stuff like that, but you're limited to 240 characters, so you can't really. It's just better if it's kind of like a. This sounds weird to say it, but you'll kind of know what I'm saying. A face-to-face type of a thing.
Yeah.
It just seems better, you know? And like, I don't know. I think that if she keeps doing stuff like that, she's going to hold on to her relevance. And I mean, she knows what the fuck she's talking about. So I
think
I
it's
don't know.
hilarious. But most of her fame is and I think she would acknowledge this, is the fact that you know, she lives rent free in the heads of so many right wing journalists. And
oh yeah.
commentators. Like, it just immediately,
absolutely,
by virtue of her name, her background, her political ideology, it's just like, okay, they just blew her up into like, I'm like, what, you know, lock your doors because, you know, this Marxist threat is coming to, you know, steal your bike and, you know, tax you to death. Like, I don't think that's actually how she operates, and I don't think that she actually believes in the high tax thing. But they're still going to run with the old canard. I've always loved the label tax and spend Democrat. It's like, well, you tax and then you spend. It's like, that's actually what the government does. So
yeah, it's kind of,
as opposed to what, tax and then don't spend, like Republicans do. We'll tax you, but we're not going to spend anything on you except for our own, you know, on our salaries. But we'll keep the government away from you.
But I mean, like, the thing is that especially the right wing, like, they use the kind of labels of socialists and communists. They use them for everybody. They called Obama a socialist, and then they called Bernie a socialist, but they're completely different on their ideology. Like, they agree on some stuff socially. They're probably like equal on social issues.
Yeah,
but like maybe not for as long, because Bernie in the Senate, and fucking credit to him, what an absolute chad, was defending gay people in 1995, which is the year that I was fucking born in.
Right.
And yeah, Obama didn't kind of, you know, like come out there and say, oh, you know, that like this needs to be kind of something that like has to happen until his second term. Was it his second?
Yeah.
Was it his second one? Well, yeah. Because it was it was 2013, right?
Yeah, because his views started to kind of, you know, move that way in the first term, but nothing overt, nothing explicit until the second term.
Yeah, so like now, they're probably kind of equal socially, but like policy wise, they have almost nothing in common. They've got almost nothing. Like, he disagrees entirely with like, he didn't think that the ACA went nearly far enough. Obviously, Bernie went, you know, with the healthcare for everybody. Like, the point is that like when you go through issue by issue, whereas they might agree on the foundational issues, Bernie would go so much fucking further than what he did. So the fact that they're trying to label both of them as both socialist or both communist, like, these words have been diluted and they've been poisoned so much that so they're using them to try and scare people, because people have like this association with the word socialist that it's like automatically a negative. So if you can paint somebody with that image, then it scares people into voting for you because they don't want to vote for socialism or for a socialist. But the point is that when you overuse these words and when you pollute them to such a degree, like, it's just like, it just doesn't have its proper meaning anymore.
Well, and it's happened so much that, I mean, Keela made this point. I mean, it does get back to this the philosophy of individualism, because if you have somebody saying socialism like that, essentially what they're saying when they just use it in sort of a pejorative way is to suggest that what the government is going to do is tax you and then spend it on somebody you shouldn't care about. They're literally appealing to some of the worst impulses that people can have, and that
Yeah, that's what definitely.
That's not actually what. And the other thing too is to kind of simplify it and say, well, socialism is expensive and costs money, and they take that money from you and then they go and spend it on these worthless projects and things that you don't give a shit about. But capitalism is about you having the freedom to make all the money you want. It's like, okay, so with capitalism, I stand a chance of winning the lottery, but with socialism, I might as well just tie this anchor to my ankle. It's like that is not.
Yeah.
This is a completely false dilemma. Nothing about this is true, but they've been spinning that simplified story of economics that people to this day have very emotional reactions to it. I get into conversations with people on Facebook and I have to like calm them because they're just like, my money is going for these I'm like, that you are not being taxed to buy this stuff. That's not how your taxes actually work. And if the government wanted to spend money on these things, they can do it. The financial bailout was an example of that. The bailout that just they dumped what, 4 trillion or something like that, the Fed did into Wall Street during the beginning of the pandemic because things were getting so shaky. Just like that. And people and guess what? We didn't turn into Zimbabwe. The dollar, it doesn't cost $1 million to buy a loaf of bread. None of that stuff is happening.
Yeah.
These people keep spinning these folk tales.
Yeah, well, I mean, so corporate socialism already exists, and you've just given a perfect example of it. Like as soon as they start to go tits up, it's like, okay, the government just hands them billions of dollars. Right. And nobody really kind of says anything. Nobody says, oh, this is obviously a bad thing because we can't have this because this is socialism. But words just don't have their same meaning anymore. It's just, I don't know. It's just a sad state of affairs.
The bad thing that I think that's happened is that more than Trump, because that's been going on longer, has had more of a coursing effect, I think, on Americans in general, because their reaction to civil discourse is, as long as corporate America is doing well, then we can sort of avoid the news cycle. We don't really have to think about this stuff. Everybody's, if people got jobs and stuff, we can go back to the narrative of it's just about you. It's just on you. If you don't have a job, it's because you're lazy or you're stupid or you're irresponsible. All of a sudden the circumstances become completely self-centered. And I think that might be something that might have something to do with the way, other than just quarantine fatigue, the way people are reacting to it now. Because when the news shows that billionaires are getting richer, the Dow and the NASDAQ are doing better, I think Leo made a good point. The first time you started seeing some serious dips in financial markets was when they announced that Trump had it. Because now all of a sudden it's like, oh, holy shit! Even for these, some of these fantasists, now it's real. Like it's in the White House. We knew it was in the White House, but it actually got the president. His son was sick. Melania was sick. So it's like this guy could die from this. Yeah, and it wasn't until then it was like, oh, right, okay. And now it seems like they jacked him up with dexamethasone and Regeneron, and he's just like walking around like, yeah, I had COVID. It's no big deal. It's like, well, tell that to the dead and their families. Yeah. Like you did.
Yeah. It's why I think I said at the start of the stream, it's the one sort of conspiracy theory that I'm almost after buying into. I genuinely don't think Trump had COVID. I don't think he had it. There was a report that came out that has been somewhat corroborated. Now, does this mean that it's 100% true and 100% factual? No, of course not. But a few people have kind of attested to this, that when Trump was still in the hospital, he had this plan where he would get in the limo or whatever, the car to bring him back to the White House. He would get out of the car. He would go up onto the little stand thing where that viral video of him struggling to breathe like a baby fucking bird just after being born 2 minutes ago, where he was going to stand there, take the tie off, unbutton his shirt, and reveal that he had a Superman t-shirt on underneath. Now, if that is actually true, if that was a genuine plan that Trump had, no fucking way he had COVID. No way he had COVID.
Unless counterpoint, unless that was the dexamethasone talking, because it can make you that gung ho.
That's true. Okay. That's fair, but it's I don't know. It's just the fact that was even a thing that was considered was
I'll give you this because I kind of go back and forth between two. But for me, the strongest indication for me that he actually had it was how goofy the White House reacted to the press, how they handled it. It was so clumsy and so sloppy, and it seemed like they were trying to decide based on how his health was going, how they were going to spin this into something that was good for them. And that kind of just off-putting sign of discoordination. That's when I thought, like, okay, I think he had it longer than we thought. I think he had it for several days before that. He gets sick. It turned because in most people that I've heard from, and it seems this is borne out. Usually, you can have it for about a week, and you start feeling like you're going to get better. And then if it's going to get serious, it's usually right after that 5-7 day period. And so I'm thinking that's what happened for him. He had the dip in the oxygen levels and stuff, and they're really concerned about him because he's very fat and quite old. And then they had to rush him, and then they had to start spinning.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's not something that I've like fully bought into, but I mean, if I was to kind of go down the whole kind of conspiracy theory route, yeah, that's probably the first one that I would kind of buy into. But anyway, at this point, I'm going to ask for the final points because I'm seriously starting to get tired now. So
okay. Well,
I mean that, and we've been streaming for 3 hours, so
I'm good to leave it wherever you want, man. Yeah,
so it's not something that I would have kind of traditionally done, but I am kind of at the point where I'm almost ready to pound the gavel and say that Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. The next couple of weeks, and I'm going to say that because it's going to be a little while before the mail-in ballots are counted and are finalized, and then there's going to be like a heap of drama with Trump trying to say that he's stealing the election from him and this and that, the other thing.
Yep.
There's going to be a few things like that are going to happen in the next couple of weeks, and they're going to be fun, they're going to be entertaining, and we're going to see a lot of drama in that time.
Definitely.
But until then, as I have said many times on this show and on MathPig's channel, I don't have a schedule because I just don't, because I work too often. So until the next time that I see you guys, until then,
good night.